Okay, I'd like to call the June 16th, 2021 Norfolk Public School Board meeting to order. All right.
Want to do roll call?
Welcome, everyone. I see we have some visitors here, which is really nice to see. We're finally opening up and getting some public comment. We'll be experiencing that today. Ms. Tanner, will you please go ahead and call roll?
Yes. Basine?
Here.
Campson?
Here.
Clanton?
Present.
Gabriel?
Present.
Jordan? You were muted. Yeah. Here. Okay. Smith?
Here.
Martin?
Here. Okay, Ms. Simpson, would you mind joining, leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Martin, Vice Chair Jordan, Superintendent Dr. Sharon Birdsong, board members, and our viewers. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simpson. Up next, we have our student musical performance.
Hi, my name is Erin Amati, and I am an advanced orchestra student for Miss Martell, and today I will be playing Minuet and Trio by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. I am accompanied by Miss Smith, and please enjoy.
So, Erin, if you're watching us, I just want to let you know it was such a pleasure to have your performance featured at our board meeting today. And we look forward to many years of following you and watching how your talents develop, and hope to have you back when you can be here in person. Thank you. Okay, next on our item, we have 3.05, the superintendent's report. Dr. Birdsong.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair Martin, Vice Chairman Jordan, members of the school board, and members of our community. Thank you for giving me the opportunity just to share a few brief updates with you this evening. This week, we are officially closing out the end of the 2020-2021 school year. And as I reflect on all that's happened over the last several months, there's certainly a lot to celebrate and to be proud of. When we started the school year, we were still at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic and realized that we would have to move forward with virtual learning to start the school year. It certainly was not the most ideal situation, but it was necessary to ensure the safety and security and the health of our students, staff, and our community at large. Our administrators, our teachers and staff, they all collaborated and contributed in very positive ways and ensured that all of our children had very thoughtful, engaging learning experiences throughout the year, despite the challenging circumstances. And eventually we were able to come back in person. We opened our doors for in-person instruction, and certainly we're excited to do so for one more day. And as I previously shared, I truly believe that our smooth reopening of schools was a clear demonstration of the magnitude of our commitment our talents, our skills, and our abilities to do whatever it takes to ensure that our children have the best education possible. I'm so proud of the extraordinary teamwork from our employees, our families, and our community members. And they really stepped up and helped us to ensure that we were able to provide our children with a solid education throughout the pandemic. It was a challenge, but our NPS family, we stood in there and we did this together. And perhaps what was most exciting at the end of this school year was the opportunity for us as a school community to celebrate the almost 1,500 students who walked across the stage at the Chartway Arena on this past Monday and Tuesday to receive their high school diplomas. Certainly, everything that we have done or what has happened, everything that we've endured over the past year and a half as it relates to schooling, it was well worth it to have the opportunity to watch all of our children walk across the stage again as they were beaming with excitement and exuded confidence, and they are just eager to start the next chapters in their lives. Again, congratulations to our graduates and their families. And now it's time for this month's superintendent report, which provides a recap of some of the exciting things that have occurred in the school division since the last time we met. So briefly, the video will highlight a few things for us, our newly selected Teachers of the Year, as well as our Division-wide Teacher of the Year, First Lady Pamela Northam's recent site visit at PB Young Elementary School, the recognition of Marie Carter of the Academy of Discovery at Lakewood for being selected as the 2021 Cox Education Hero, the experiences of a group of aspiring administrators who completed their program in this year's NPS Leadership Academy. And finally, the video highlights a group of promising student athletes who have made collegiate commitments at a signing day event. So without further ado, let's roll the video.
Norfolk Public Schools recognized its top 3 educators as the superintendent and a small group of administrators traveled to schools to personally congratulate each teacher. This year's High School Teacher of the Year is Don Lyons, a health and PE teacher at Net Academy. This 38-year veteran of NPS still gets excited when a student learns a new skill in the gym or in the classroom.
It's a pretty big deal. I knew I was nominated for Teacher of the Year from our school, but that's a real big honor with all the different schools that we have here. It's really something I never thought I would achieve, and it's really a big deal. I'm very humbled by it.
The Middle School Teacher of the Year resides at Northside. Samaray Brashears is an English as a second language teacher who enjoys connecting with her students and their families.
Being able to not just teach the students, but being able to let the families know, the EL families, that they're welcome in schools and that we're a community and they are not alone. You know, I didn't do this by myself. There are a lot of strong shoulders that I was able to stand on. So this is a group recognition, not just mine.
The last stop was at Richard Bowling Elementary, where Sabrina Waheed was named the elementary and the 2021 District-wide Teacher of the Year. This first grade teacher worked hard to ensure that her students had everything they needed to be engaged in and out of the classroom.
I think that through support of my administrators and co-workers, I have been able to be creative, be a creative teacher, a fun and engaging teacher, anything I can do to keep my students engaged in learning. And I think that the committee saw that through my video, and that's probably why I won.
Virginia First Lady Pamela Northam stopped by PB Young Elementary to spend time with staff and read to some of our youngest students. Mrs. Northam, who had previously visited the school in September of 2018, commended the teachers' hard work and was thrilled to see how happy students were to be back in the building.
It's not easy, but they're doing a great job creatively and courageously keeping kids learning in a safe and healthy environment. And they're so excited to be here. It was really fun to be in the class today and to feel the energy that they get from their friends, their peers, and their amazing superhero teachers. So it's great to see it being done, and we want to be able to tell everyone this is the great way to get everyone back to school.
Well, having Mrs. Northam visit PB Young Elementary School really emphasizes the importance of early childhood education, along with her husband, Governor Northam, and the General Assembly expanding our funding for early childhood learning programs has really helped us out. And I think that, of course, having her here shows that they really care about not just the funding and the process of it, but they actually care about our children.
Marie Carter, a middle school math teacher at the Academy for Discovery at Lakewood, was named a 2021 Cox Education Hero. Representatives from Cox surprised her virtually during one of her classes and presented her with $1,000 for a classroom makeover. Ms. Carter was nominated by a community member for going above and beyond the call of duty in support of her students.
So Ms. Carter doesn't just teach our students at ADL. So Ms. Carter truly goes out into the community. She sees the need and she makes sure she meets that need. And so she really does advocate for the city, advocate for our students, and just brings awareness and shows us that it just takes something small to start, and as we truly build up as a community, it can make a huge difference in the lives of our students.
It was a surprise. We don't expect things like this, but it was very humbling, and I'm still shaking a little bit. It was neat. It's motivating me and to keep doing what I'm doing. It's the kids, man. Like, just being able to show somebody something different, regardless if it's math or even talking about my own culture. Even just having those conversations, it's hugely valuable, and I wouldn't be able to do that in any other profession.
As part of our ongoing commitment to provide faculty and staff with professional development opportunities, Norfolk Public Schools offers the Aspiring Principals Leadership Academy, where participants get the chance to build on their desire to become administrative professionals.
Well, this program really prepared me because I had different leaders from all the aspects of Norfolk. We had principals, heads of departments. They really told us what to expect, and also how we can use them as supports when we get to where we need to go.
Our ultimate goal is to see each of these leaders become a principal in Norfolk Public Schools. If they desire to work beyond the principalship, if they want to become directors, executive directors, chiefs, superintendents, we want to support them, and we want to give them the tools that they'll need to be successful.
Bank of America, in partnership with United Way, donated over 100,000 masks to students at Azalea Gardens Middle School. This donation was coordinated as a part of the response to America's Mask Challenge.
Well, we've had a partnership now, an intense partnership with Norfolk Public Schools for over 9 years, and the partnership with the Bank of America fuels that. So Bank of America gave over 110,000 masks to support our children, to keep teachers and children safe, and remove one barrier of worry.
First, it's a tangible, concrete gesture that shows that as a community, we care about our kids, we care about their learning, and so it just is a way of infusing some of the community partnership with some energy to show, hey, we are all in this together. Especially at this time, we've been under pandemic conditions and changes in our instructional program so we can keep everybody safe and how and when kids come to school. And it's been over a year. So now we have, this gesture that helps us to know that we are all in this together.
Maury High School honored some of their student athletes who will go on to play sports at the next level with a signing ceremony in front of family and friends.
Felt pretty good. Shows that I accomplished a lot, and it feels good to have them in the stands and have them as a support system. And I'm going to go on and do big things at Norfolk State.
It was definitely exciting to see everyone out here. With COVID, we haven't been able to get in the school, so to see everyone here is just a huge stride in the progress forward.
I'm really excited to continue playing field hockey because no one else on my team committed, so I get to carry on our Maury team next year.
12 student athletes from 6 sports were featured as it helped show the depth of athletics at the school.
What I told the kids is when you pull it up, it's anywhere between 3 and 7% of high school kids get to play at the college level, and we're right at that 4% with our graduating seniors. So it's pretty impressive if you ask me, because we like to have a diverse athletic program that is across the board.
These student athletes work hard on and off the field, and the school makes sure that the support is there.
I think we have a strong base with all of our teachers here. The administration, obviously it starts with Ms. Berg on the way down, and she kind of demands the excellence on and off the field. And obviously the community with the parents. They do a great job of communicating with the coaches, and they do a good job of working with us, with their kids, and it's just one big, really big family that works together.
To see an extended version of this story, log on to the address on the screen.
Madam Chair Martin, Mr. Jordan, members of the board, that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Birdsong. It was nice to see some Hampden, Sydney, and Louisiana State University representation. So I'm very proud of all of our athletes that had the opportunity to sign on to their next teams. So good luck. We look forward to following your careers, your sports careers. And yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Birdsong. There's a lot going on, a lot of exciting things to celebrate. All right, next on our agenda, we have the school board clerk's report.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Superintendent Dr. Birdsong, board members, and our viewers, and our guests here this evening. It gives me great honor to recognize our 2 school board student representatives for their service during the 2020-21 school year. We'll definitely have to get in touch with Amelia to recognize her as well. I'd like to ask Dr. Birdsong and Dr. Martin to please proceed to the podium to begin this special recognition. And Rich is going to turn the mic on the laptop for you. You're going to go to the podium down there. No, you're fine. To the podium down there.
Up close in person.
And the awards are on the side table. As they make their way, Georgia, I'd like for you to make your way down there to the podium beside them. Dr. Birdsong is going to present to you a plaque, and it reads, "With sincere appreciation for your service as the City of Norfolk School Board Student Representative during the 2020-21 school year." Let's give her a round of applause.
Go Blues, right? Go Blues.
And we will now have Dr. Martin present a special bronze medal in recognition of your service to Norfolk Public Schools.
Thank you all so much for everything here. I learned so much from every single person. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll come back and see you. Okay.
Congratulations. We will definitely recognize Amelia Burse as well, who was our alternate. And Madam Chair, this concludes our recognitions for tonight.
Okay. Ms. Tanner, how many people do we have signed up for the agenda item citizen comments?
Madam Chair, we have 5 speakers.
Okay.
Yes, and for tonight's public comments, speakers have 3 minutes to provide public comments. A timer will alarm to signal the conclusion of your remarks. Madam Chair, our first speaker for today is Mary Anna White, and she's on Zoom. So we're going to give her an opportunity to come into the meeting.
Okay. Welcome, Ms. White.
Okay. Ms. White, are you there?
Thank you so much. Honorable Dr. Birdsong and honorable members of the school board.
Thank you so much. I'm Mariana White, a teacher at Granby High School and a member of the EAN. It was very exciting to see the seniors graduate last night. I'm hoping that we are on our way back to our normal times. I appreciate all that you have done to keep us safe this year, and I cannot repeat that enough. I would like to request that NPS give a bonus to the part-time workers, including the cafeteria staff who worked all through the pandemic to serve our community in person. Part-time workers such as bus drivers were not able to work, and so they also need this help. They stayed home to help keep the community safe. One of the cafeteria workers at my school, Ms. DeLoach, wanted to come and speak tonight, but I didn't think she was able to, so that's why I'm addressing you tonight. Thank you again for all you do. Please find the bonus money for all the part-time workers to show that we recognize their great work and value them. Thank you again.
Ms. Tanner, could you please, I guess maybe I could say it because I'm telling you, just remind everyone that we don't comment. So just want to put that out there. We're listening, but we don't comment. We don't respond to public comment. Okay, go ahead. Who's next? Okay.
Okay, let me try that again. I was muted. With us today, we have 4 speakers here in the building. Our first one is Cora Johnson, followed by Ellen Knight, and Rich is going to cut the sound on, so while they're at the podium, you'll be able to hear them. Yes, you may.
I'll begin now.
Just one moment.
Okay. Good evening, school board. Dr. Martin, Vice Chair, Mr. Jordan, members of the school board, Superintendent, Dr. Birdsong, and the NPS administrative team. My name is Cora Johnson. I'm a Norfolk, I'm a resident of Norfolk. I have 2 children that attend the Norfolk Public Schools. I have been driving the Norfolk Public School buses for the past 2 years. I just signed my contract for the 21-22 school year. I just want to say thank you to everyone for your support in the COVID-19 pandemic, helping us get back on track. So I truly thank the school board members and NPS administrative staff for navigating us back on track during the pandemic and now during the recovery. I truly thank you all. I am here tonight to speak on behalf of my school bus co-workers and the Department of Transportation. I'm also here tonight to speak on the one-time bonus that was given to some Norfolk employees on June 4th, 2021. I would like to share my story. Norfolk Public School bus drivers' lives matter. We are the part of the main arteries that afford Norfolk Public School students to receive a fundamental education from pre-K to 12th grade. We are essential workers. School bus drivers work from sun up to sundown, ensuring that no child is left behind 5 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, depending on the extracurricular activities. Our lives matter because we have always been the first frontline workers our students meet each and every day. We drive our buses and transport our students in goods and services and resources during the pandemic. It concerns me that Norfolk Public Schools did not issue a one-time bonus payment of $1,000 to the hard-working transportation staff. NPS decision made me and my colleagues feel like school bus drivers don't matter. This is a misconception. The school bus drivers did work throughout the pandemic. For the record, school bus drivers were required to work an A and B schedule for a variety of additional duties. And one of those duties were delivering laptops, school supplies, grab-and-go meals to the children in the neighborhoods across the cities on our NPS buses with NPS staff. A second thing that we did was school bus drivers were required to regen our buses 2 to 3 times a week. The third thing was school bus drivers were required to do a 20-point inspection where we had to wash, clean, spray, and sanitize our buses 2 to 3 times a week during the pandemic. Now that we have returned back to in-school person operations, we are now required to complete these duties for all the buses before, during the day, in between routes, and at the end of every route. It is very important to do the pre-trip before the bus leaves the yard, while the bus is on the road, and while we bring the bus back in the yard. We have to make sure that that bus is still in compliance.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Your
Yes,
3
ma'am.
minutes
So I
is
just
up.
want to tell you all, thank you for your time. And like Dr. Barson said, we are all part of the NPS family, and we're all in this together. School bus drivers' lives does matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Tanner?
Good evening, School Board, Dr. Martin, Vice Chair, Mr. Jordan, members of the Norfolk School Board, and Superintendent Dr. Birdsong, and the Norfolk Public School Administrative Team. My name is Ellen Knight, and I am a resident of the city of Norfolk, and I have 3 children who graduated from the Norfolk Public School. I'm a proud member of the Education Association of Norfolk, EAN Union, and I've been employed by the district. I have been employed by the district for the past 12 years as a full-time contracted out-of-district bus driver in transportation department. I transport children who live out of the district across the city of Norfolk. Before the pandemic, I worked at the K-8 school in the cafeteria as a monitor 3 to 4 days per week. I also drive for the school district athletic program after school and in evenings and each week. On June 7th, I recently renewed my contract to continue to serve the children of Norfolk for the 2021 and 22 school year. I would like to thank the members of the Norfolk School Board and the Norfolk Public Administration team for leading our school system through the challenges we faced in planning and recovering the COVID-19 pandemic. While I am here representing my fellow bus drivers and staff in transportation department, tonight I'm here to speak as an individual about one-time bonus payment given to the Norfolk Public School employees on June 4th, 2021. I am concerned that Norfolk Public Schools did not issue a one-time bonus payment of $1,000 to the transportation department workers of Norfolk Public Schools. The decision was made, and our colleagues feel like our work and services was as bus drivers during the pandemic was not acknowledged and appreciated appreciated. To be clear, school bus drivers continued to work as required throughout the pandemic, and we reported to work to complete specific weekly tasks to prepare for returning to in-person operations in the district. I would like to tell my story. One of the tasks and assignments I had during the pandemic was to go to a school to assist school staff to clean sanitized materials such as these boards, about 50 to 75 of them, and in all the classrooms. I'll also work with the school nutrition department to prepare and distribute the grab and to-go meal program, and I was available to work at any time. All transportation workers in Norfolk Public School are given assignments. We're given assignments like throughout the pandemic to assist the children and families in Norfolk. Now I am preparing to work for the summer school program to help our students to get to school to continue learning. We are the frontline workers, and we are students. We see our students first each and every day, and we drive our buses and transport our students, goods, provide services and resources to our neighborhoods. School bus drivers matter too, and we would like to be treated with professionalism and respect to work as we go to work. Therefore, on behalf of Norfolk Public School bus drivers and cafeteria workers and any other workers who are left out, please take a second look at the budget and reconsider giving us a bonus as well. We are more than bus drivers to our children. We need transportation They need our transportation and ride our buses every day.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Philip Hawkins Jr., followed by Helen Pryor.
Okay.
Good evening, School Board Chair, Dr. Martin, Vice Chair, Mr. Jordan, members of the Norfolk School Board, Superintendent, Dr. Birdsong, and the Norfolk Public Schools Administrative Team. My name is Philip Hawkins. I reside at 3597 Mississippi Avenue in the Ingleside community. I am the President-elect and proud member of the Education Association of Norfolk, the EAN, the local affiliate of the VEA, and the national affiliate, the NEA, the largest labor union in the United States. I am the leader and advocate of the union members and employees who are here today. Many of them who are outside our bus drivers, part of our workforce, and they wanted to come to be represented tonight. I also serve on the Norfolk Public Schools School Facilities Master Plan Steering Committee, and I serve on the Board of Directors for the Ingleside Civic League. I am a proud pre-K teacher and school leader at the P.B. Young Senior Elementary School, and I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Norfolk. Tonight, I, along with the school and community stakeholders, we wear red for ED in solidarity, and we support our union members and our employees here in Norfolk Public Schools. We support public education as one NPS family. I would like to thank the members of the Norfolk School Board and the NPS administrative team for your leadership in navigating us through this challenging time of the COVID-19 pandemic as we return to in-person operations. I would like to also sincerely thank each and every one of you for providing the one-time bonus to our Norfolk Public Schools employees, because it truly did make a difference and it showed us that you care. It concerns me, however, that some of the employees in the district did not receive the bonus when we did receive it on June 4th. There are many misconceptions about those members of our workforce who did not receive it. And so we've heard those stories tonight, and we do appreciate you listening tonight and taking the time to reconsider. So basically, I just wanted to make sure that we can do that. If possible, just take a second look at the budget to see what we can do, not only for our bus drivers, but for our cafeteria workers who are part-time staff. And many of them don't have benefits with the division. They work 30 hours a week, and they serve our students. They did serve us with the grab and go meals throughout the pandemic. And many of the bus drivers, as we heard, they were actually on the front lines providing services, getting resources to our schools and to our families, along with our teachers and staff who were out in the community, knocking on doors, reaching out to our students and families. And so we want to send a clear message to all of our members of our division that every employee matters and that we all deserve some form of bonus. Thank you for listening to my speech and for listening to the stories and the voices from the field. And again, Dr. Birdsong, as you said, we are part of this NPS family. We thank you for leading our district, because this has been a tough process for all of us, but we are coming back together. And we are excited for our students because they have a brighter future ahead of them. Thank you again, and we look forward to continued collaborations with Norfolk Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Good evening, Dr. Martin, Mr. Jordan, school board members, administrative team. Dr. Birdsong, and all of our family and friends here and virtually with Norfolk Public Schools. I'm Helen Pryor. I have the honor of being the Vice President-elect for the Education Association of Norfolk and a delegate with the Virginia Education Association. I'm more privileged as being a Ruffner Middle School teacher for the last 14 years. First and foremost, thank you. Thank you for your vigilance this year, for keeping us all safe. Thank you for your support through all the PD you provided to us so we could maneuver virtual and hybrid through thoughtful, engaging, and innovative lessons. Thank you for giving us all those tools. And thank you for valuing us, especially with these bonuses in a much needed time. We are family. We truly are a chain of exceptional people. And every chain is essential. Every chain is necessary to keep it strong. And if we don't respect every chain, it does break. The very first day of school for my daughter, when she left for kindergarten 22 plus years ago, the only person I had contact with was the bus driver. I was a nervous parent. I was a single parent. And that bus driver eased my fears, made me feel safe, that my daughter was going to be safe. I watched as my daughter drove off with the only person that I had contact with that day. That memory has stayed with me, and it reminds me as an adult to appreciate all of our members of Norfolk Public Schools. Please take a moment for yourselves today to think about the first day you sent your own child to school. Remind yourself of all those extracurricular activities. Remind yourselves of all those boxed lunches made for these field trips. Everyone is so important. That is what makes us strong. Think about all of those that may not necessarily be in the classroom, but are essential for the success, safety, and health of all of our students and staff and parents of Norfolk Public Schools. Please rethink these bonuses. Please take a moment to think about everyone, because there is still time to make this right. And please remember that we do appreciate all that you do. We know the hours that you spend helping take care of us. So let's take care of everybody together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor. Ms. Tanner, do we have any speakers signed up for non-agenda items?
No, we do not. And this concludes our speakers for this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next we have approval. Approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam Chair.
Yes?
Okay. Before I make the motion, I just want to make sure that we
There
have
is the removal of the policy GCBDZ. It's it's now item 5.03 under the decision discussion agenda.
Okay.
And we also have moved the title grant applications. 1 through 4 is 5.02, and the gifted education plan has been moved also to the decision discussion agenda as 5.04.
Great, thank you. So with that being said, Madam Chair, I move for adoption of the consent agenda as amended.
Can you repeat that, please?
I said, with that being stated, I move for the adoption of the consent agenda as amended.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second on the floor?
Second.
Dr. Gabriel seconded. Please call the roll or call the question, sorry.
Hampson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye. Thank you. The ayes have it. Next on our agenda, we have we're moving on to the decision discussion. Yes, decision discussion agenda. Item 5.01, our monthly financial report. Mr. Jenkins, will you be presenting?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chairman Jordan, excuse me, Dr. Birdsong, and members of the school board. I'm pleased to review the May financial report with you tonight. The May financial report covers 11 months of the year. During that period, we had collected $294.1 million of general fund revenue. That's 87.5% of the $337 million operating budget. The collections were slightly below the pre-pandemic levels. During the same 11 months of the previous year, we collected 86.7% of the budget in 2020, and in 2019, it was 87.9%. On page 3 of the highlights, we see revenues and spending to date. Through May, we had spent or encumbered $282.4 million, or 83.8% of our $337 million budget. Again, the revenue totals were $294 million through May. During the previous 2 years, spending for the first 11 months was 84.6% of the budget in fiscal 2020 and 86.5% in 2019. So that indicates the spending is below the levels of that of pre-pandemic levels. On page 4, there are 2 graphs. One contains monthly revenue and the other one monthly expenditures for each month of the year. The graph displays the current year data through May in red columns, with previous year's information in blue and green. The monthly budget estimates are in the green background. Starting on page 5, you'll find detailed information on the status of the 21 operating budget. You'll recall that City Council approved an increase in the budget of $4.8 million for employee pay raises, bonuses. The budget amendment for those bonuses, along with the bonuses themselves, will occur in the June report, so they do not appear in this report. It was brought to our attention that the revenue schedule, page 7, included in the original report, was in a different format and did not include titles. I think Mrs. Tanner has forwarded you a revised form yesterday morning. During May, we recorded 5 budget entries exceeding $50,000. The budgetary transfers or savings were transferred to replace aging service vehicles, update technology, repair high school track surfaces, and to fund a renewal for the teacher in residence program. There was also one transfer between the facility renewal accounts and the building maintenance accounts. Dr. Martin, that concludes my report. If you members of the board have questions, I'll be glad to try to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Any questions? Mr. Jordan, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a few questions. First, I have a general question. In this monthly report, does that include the different funds that we receive from the CARES Act and ESSER grants?
Mr. Jordan, they are not included in this report. Those we report quarterly on the transactions for the grant funds. The next quarter would end at the end of this month, actually, for June. So we would have a report on the grants at the end for the June report that would be made next month.
Okay. On page 8 of the report, for item D30, pupil transportation, where we show a percent available of 36.8%, 5.1 million, 5.2 if you round it up, available budget. Can you speak to what that's telling us in terms of expenditures, and is it likely that we will have unexpended funds in that area at the end of this year?
Yes, sir. If you can see from transportation, we have remaining $5,159,000. The amount that we spent last month was $847,000. We can expect a similar cost that we would incur during the month of June, which would bring the balance down about $850,000. There may be other expenditures that are incurred in June. I know, for instance, we ordered some replacement vehicles earlier. Or excuse me, we made a budget transfer last month for some replacement vehicles. They may show up next month. There is a surplus, primarily because of the pandemic. Buses were not running as they normally run. So we certainly have savings in fuel costs. There were also a number of vacancies. We have quite a few vacancies in transportation and are having difficulty attracting bus drivers. So there are savings in the salary and wage accounts in the transportation area as well. So we do expect that we would end the year with a surplus in the transportation function, just as we will in a number of others.
Yeah, well, going to another one then, on that same page, D66 facility improvements. Can you remind us again, based upon all the different things that we've been doing, what that $4.3 million is available means for the facilities improvement line?
Okay, this is one area that is really a bit on the confusing side. The 4.3 million, or I should say the $5.4 million budget, includes about 4 million. I'm not sure the exact number, but it's 3.7 million and $4 million of expenditures that are tied to the 2% property tax, I guess, dedication. The council dedicated 2 cents of the real estate taxes to school improvements or repair, school capital, or the debt service on that. So this includes about $4 million of money that we do not see, does not come to us. It's reserved for education, for capital in the city's budget. So it winds up in our budget, but we do not actually receive those funds. There's an offsetting revenue line of the same amount, again, that we do not receive directly. The city will withhold those funds and use it to pay the debt service or towards the debt service on school facilities.
Okay, so that's
there's that number is really smaller than it appears on the report.
Okay, and so that's different from where we see references to the 3.98 city debt service construction that we see there.
What page are you looking at?
On page 7 now at the top, where we see.
You're on page 7.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the same number. 3 million, it's almost 4 million, 3,980,000. It's the same number. We won't actually collect that revenue. We will not actually spend the expenditure. So the two will balance each other. But the city includes it in our budget, so we are displaying it as well.
Okay, just so I'm understanding.
Neither receive it nor spend it. The city actually does that on our behalf.
So the 3.98 that we see on page 7 is also within what we're seeing, the 4.3 on page 8 for D66.
Yes, sir, exactly.
Okay.
That is exactly true.
All right, thank you. And then for the transfers that you referenced, can you explain? So, for example, with the transfer of funds that were made for the Norview track, can you describe how how that works in terms of the Norview track being done versus the Ruffner tennis courts or any other item? How does this particular item, fund repair, work as far as list of projects or determination when funds would be transferred from classroom instruction to support fund repair of the Norview track?
Okay, there was a transfer to the athletic section from classroom instruction salaries. Again, this is going to be savings in the salaries that we pay, in this case, mostly the instructional staff, teachers and teacher assistants. And that is transferred to athletics. The determination of specifically which track is replaced vis-a-vis, say, Norview or say Booker T. Washington or another school would be based, I'm certain, on the conditions of the track. I don't have that specific information, but the highest priority let me restate that. The track that needed the attention most would be the one that would be replaced. We had savings in the account in teacher salaries. A lot of that was based on vacancies. We had more positions budgeted than we actually filled. So there were savings in the accounts, and that was a request. We had a request to fix the track, and that's where we identified some funds.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to understand the process of it. So as we, later on this evening, we'll deal with capital improvements. We have conversations about maintenance. So I'm trying to understand, there's something like the Norview track, why wouldn't that fall into, does that fall into some other category? And if not, why wouldn't it? And then I'm just trying to understand what that process is. So for example, I'm sorry, Dr. Birdsong, you want to, okay. Okay.
So Mr. Jordan, as you know, at the end of the year, typically for years, there's been surplus. And so when there are in-year monies available, if there is a need, it is discussed up through the chain of command, through department chairs, through the chiefs, to myself. We have a discussion about it. And then a decision is made. Is this something that we should move forward with or not? And because we do anticipate that we're going to have a significant amount of year-end funds, now is the time to do some repairs that have not been done in a very long time. And so, of course, we definitely support our student athletes. We think they deserve the best track and fields and baseball, softball fields as any other child in another division. And so if we have an opportunity to improve those conditions for them, that's what we're attempting to do. So, for example, Mr. Sutmiller, in this case, came forward and said, because of this, we have this need. Are we able to do this with year-end funding? And so the chiefs and I, we get together, we discuss it, we evaluate the request, and then a decision is made.
Okay, yeah, I think, and we can talk about it some more, but I think the piece I'm just trying to get an understanding, and I might come back to it with the CIP piece, is just understanding that process. Because like I said, there's just, since I walk around Ruffner, you go to the Ruffner tennis courts for years, you look at that thing, people raise issue about tennis courts at Booker T. It's always something that someone raises concerns about. It just caught my attention that we made this transfer for that particular item, and that we didn't transfer it from transportation, for example. We made the transfer from classroom instruction. So I was just trying to understand how that works. And
if I could, Mr. Jordan, the one thing I would add is there's a lot of things that we just don't put in our budget. It's not because they are not important. It's simply that there isn't enough money. We fund the highest priority items, and things like tracks or replacing the surface on the track. That's the type of thing that we would handle if we had money available at the end of the year. So it's not in our plan, but there's a lot of things like this that we can only accomplish if they're saving somewhere.
Yeah, and I'm not objecting to that being done. What I am trying to get an understanding of is if there's a list of things, how we at a board level are able to see what these identified needs are as we are dealing with budgeting requests that come before us. And then so when we see a transfer like this, to me, it just helps to explain what that list is and how we are knocking off that list as we go forward. And it just caught my attention, and that's why I'm asking about it. Then I have one other question, somewhat related to the public comments that we just had. So when we made the changes for the bonus process, we had carryover funds that we requested council for us to use to amend the fiscal year 21 budget in order to pay those bonuses out of right now, correct?
Yes, sir.
So in the instance where we see the, like where you answered before about the additional funds that are likely going to be available in the transportation area, if the board wanted to do additional bonuses, what would that process be as we're in June? I mean, I know you all recommended these types of transfers, but if we wanted to, before all the funds end up in expended funds again, and we go through whatever we may end up doing as part of next year's budget, if the board wanted to make recommendations to exercise the ability to address these available funds now versus a month from now or 6 months from now, how would we do that?
Well, sir, I mean, I can tell you we only have two weeks left in the year. So, I mean, it would have to be something that was done very rapidly.
In other words, if we in a July meeting, we would then be in the new fiscal year.
Yes, sir.
But we would also have funds from the current fiscal year that had not been expended, but we could not take action on those funds. I mean, we can take action on those funds at any point in the year, or does that have to wait as part of?
The funds that were unspent funds remaining in this year's budget, fiscal 21, they will be certainly available in the future. We in the city must close the books before the city staff or city council would take any action to allow us to, say, for instance, use those funds for any specific purpose. So they're there, and they certainly would be available, but they would not be available until, I'd say, January at the very earliest, where city council would entertain a request to say for supplemental appropriation from those funds. And I guess I will remind you as well that the council's policy says that we are to use it for one-time purposes. So assuming we fall within that realm, I presume the council would be receptive to your request.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Martin.
You're welcome. Ms. Basine, did you still have a question?
Well, Mr. Jordan, just the last question he just asked was the question I was going to ask about what restrictions were in place if we were to consider using those funds. The other thought, as he was asking that question, I would, if we were to consider other employee groups, particularly bus drivers, as we heard from tonight, just getting a general sense of how much that would cost, or what the dollar amount is for providing bonuses, and if in that surplus that we've already identified to be used for bonuses for other employee groups, if there are projects that we are saying that could be used, could those be delayed till January when we might be able to use these other one-time funds and try to use funds that are available to us now to consider other employee groups uh, in the bonus plan.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm following you. We certainly haven't spent all of their budget for fiscal 21.
Right.
And if you're asking me, could we provide a bonus this month to employee groups? I mean, there is some time, but there's not a lot of time. We have payroll runs twice a month. Well, excuse me, every 2 weeks, which is usually twice a month. So we were paid last week. We will be paid again, not this week, but the following. So I won't say that payroll can't do it, but there is a time crunch. Just the calendar.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe I probably didn't make myself clear. So I'm trying to phrase it in a different way. So I think for me, anyway, it would be helpful to know, since we kind of got on the topic of the bonuses too, to understand which employee groups were not included in the bonuses, and if we could better understand the dollar amounts associated with it, and if there is a way to provide bonuses to those groups. I'd like to hear more about that and how we might be able to do that. Because I do see areas here where, like Mr. Jordan pointed out, in the transportation, I had the exact same thought. If we have that amount there, if we have other amounts that would have normally have gone towards salaries, like, could we use that? And if there are projects that we have said that we're going to use the current, the fund balance that we've already received approval on, if there are projects or monies allocated there that could be delayed so that we could provide those bonuses now while we then request the surplus from this FY21 year to be applied later, could we strategically, kind of, figure out how to do that?
So, Ms. Basine, I'm hearing similar question to what Mr. Jordan was asking about the prioritization of cap maintenance and maintenance projects. You're asking how to prioritize the funds toward possible bonuses for certain employee classes. Is that correct?
Yes. So that I see those as a little bit different, So maybe it would just be helpful, just to make this simple, is just to understand which employee groups were not included in the bonus structure
We can certainly provide that for you.
and how much it would cost to provide bonuses to those groups. In addition to the bus drivers, I know we've heard from other employee groups like our long-term subs who have been and are even still right now to this day in the classroom, who have developed lesson plans, who have been right there with our students all along the way. So, that's another employee group. I mean, and as I think was so eloquently put earlier, I mean, each chain in the fence, to support our students, if we can do something,
I mean,
I'd like to hear more
I
about
would
it.
say to you that any person that was working within a school that was full-time under contract did receive the bonus. So there may be a few part-time employees, but all the full-time employees received a bonus, and that's what Dr. Birdsong had recommended to you.
So that includes long-term subs?
It would not have included long-term subs.
No, I know, but that's why I think when that recommendation, like, I don't know what all of the classifications are and
It
who's
would not have included
Yeah.
long-term subs.
Right.
That is
So until I saw that list, I was like, oh, what are all the other employee groups that aren't included? And if we could get a dollar amount, that would help define exactly how much we're talking about. I think it might help us when we do see, uh, any surplus here. I think in our planning, I think it would be helpful.
Okay.
I think also that's assuming that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's assuming that that money would go toward bonuses. So there might be other priority projects that might be earmarked for that we're just not aware of yet. It might.
Well, I can say that this was 17.7 million. Council did appropriate, but it's appropriated to the capital fund, to the capital budget. So the appropriation we have from council for next year would not permit us to use those surplus funds from the previous 2 years for a supplemental bonus or for a second round of bonuses. Now, we could certainly ask council to make an amendment to that. That would require action on your part and city council.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Ms. Basine, you okay?
Yeah, and I was just going to support what also support what Mr. Jordan was saying about a better understanding of how maintenance projects like like you mentioned the Ruffner tennis courts, which I know have been spoken about for years. I know way before my child was at school there.
I'm confident that Mr.
Yeah.
Miller has such a list
Okay.
that is prioritized.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I saw Mr. Clanton's hand and then Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. I just want to make sure I was clear on, I guess, what would become reversion funds. And I guess you said the 17 million. I guess I just want to make sure. So that's already been, we've kind of identified that.
That
right?
was for previous years. Council is appropriated.
Got it.
We haven't spent any of it.
Got it.
It's all appropriated, and it is appropriated in the capital section. It's not in the operating budget, but it's in the separate capital.
Got it. So in regards to, because I'll be perfectly honest, I learned a lot more this evening in regards to some of the work assignments that others were doing. And I hear Mr. Jordan, and I also understand the time period and the pay cycles, and every 2 weeks, we only have a finite amount of time to do something if we were. And so I almost want to ask Madam Chair, if we can get those numbers. I think we still have kind of some items on the agenda. By the time we come, I think I've gotten some here. I think there's about 214 school bus drivers, and there's there's part-time luncheon monitors and so forth that were in there. But I understand also the long-term subs, because I remember those coming to us as well.
So there are 200 bus driving positions. We have a lot of vacancies. The number is a little smaller.
A little bit smaller than that?
Yes, sir.
So kind of where I looked at maybe $312,000 is kind of a pot, because whatever is not expended, this going to get put back into what we would have to request back from council. My only thing is that if we're going to do anything about this, we have to do it tonight. We would have to do it tonight in order for payroll periods, or we'll be asking for it back in the later. And I don't feel like those folks need to wait. But I don't think that I'm prepared at this particular point right now to do that. I do want to kind of get some better understanding of some of those numbers there, but I do believe in the, and I appreciate all the speakers who came here. I didn't really realize that our bus drivers were doing some of those other things there. So I appreciate you clarifying the 17 million for me. Madam Chair, I may come back to this later in this meeting here, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Clanton. Go ahead, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Mr. Jenkins, just for my clarification, the school nutrition fund, can that be used for full-time and part-time bonuses for cafeteria workers only?
It certainly could. I will say that the bonuses that we paid cafeteria workers a bonus if they fell under that same guideline of full-time employee.
Right.
Yes, all of them were paid whether they worked in the school or not. And that bonus came not out of the cafeteria fund, but out of the general fund. I'll tell you that our cafeteria fund has been very healthy. We've had a pretty large fund balance, but if you also look at the financial report this month, you'll see that they have about a $4 million deficit in spending this year, simply because we were providing services. We hired everybody and we paid everybody, but we weren't selling near as many meals. When I say selling, most of it's through reimbursements from the federal government, but we served far fewer meals than we would in an ordinary year. So I bring this up to say that spending on the cafeteria or school nutrition fund is much more than we've taken in. And we're looking at about a $4 million deficit. I'm hoping that there are significant reimbursements that the federal lunch and breakfast program will bring in to reduce that number. But their fund balance in the school nutrition fund is probably going to be about half the size it was when we started the year. So we had about an $8 million fund balance at the beginning. At the end, it's going to be about 1.
So you think it's going to be about 4 at the end of this school year?
Yes, unless there's a lot of reimbursements, and I do expect some reimbursements from the feds that haven't been processed.
How many part-time cafeteria workers do we have?
I don't have that. I don't think it's a huge number.
Yeah, I don't think it's like $4 million worth.
No, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Smith, are you okay? You done?
I'm done.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Jordan, go ahead.
Follow-up question then. Obviously, we know we're going to end up with tens of millions of unspent funds again this year.
We're going to have a surplus. It's pretty clear to me that we are going to have a surplus. Yes, sir.
So if the board amended the current year's budget to set aside $1 million to support additional bonuses based upon the recommendation of the superintendent, and then you all went back and looked at that, if we ended up not using all that 1 million, that would just end up in that unexpended fund account, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I'm not sure it's appropriate here, but I would think that what we could do then is do just that, is tonight before we leave, amend our existing budget to allocate an amount for bonuses for additional employee groups and long-term subs, make that money available, and then have the administration look at an appropriate way of distributing those bonuses and to whom, but we would have at least authorized that funding to be available for that purpose before we end this fiscal year. Is that an appropriate way of amending a school board budget to provide the administration resources to do something like that?
I mean, if we were so directed, we certainly would do that.
But that's within our scope and authority, and it wouldn't cause any big issues.
We defer to the attorney, but I mean, I'm assuming.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to take a look at that. I can't answer the question off the top of my head, but I will take a look at it.
My concern is about having all of the accurate information in front of us to make a decision.
I'm not sure, because I'm not sure the number of employees that are affected.
Right.
I also don't know how we treat part-time employees vis-a-vis full-time. Do we give a partial bonus or a prorated bonus? I will tell you that for employees that started after October 31st, we did prorate it because we felt like employees that had been here the full year should get the full bonus, but ones who showed up in February should not get the full bonus. So, I mean, there's some factors like that.
Okay. So that presents another question. So if we are meeting next week, so if we were to meet and make a decision next week, I understand that would be a very short time frame, even shorter time frame for payroll. But if we did, because I want to make sure we have all the information in front of us before we make a decision and have time for discussion. So if we did do that, would that?
We don't have a lot of time before June 30th. But I mean, if it was a bonus that was declared for this year and we paid it, say, on July the 6th or the 8th, we would charge it back into the previous.
Okay, that's what I'm asking about
That'll give
retroactively.
us a few.
Yeah. Okay. So that gives us a little more time than just deciding this evening. I think that's a little too soon. I'd really like to have all of the information in front of us before we do that.
Dr. Gabriel has a question.
What's that?
Dr. Gabriel has a question.
Oh, Dr. Gabriel, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments of my colleagues here. And certainly, we definitely want to make sure that all of the employees are recognized for the service that they have provided. When Dr. Birdsong presented the plan to us originally, and I wholeheartedly supported her in voting for that budget, she shared with us her thought process. I agree. We have some information that we need to get with regards to numbers and maybe other programs that maybe some part-time employees may have been eligible for because they were part-time. I just want to make sure that we have all of the facts before we, make a motion, which, I'd certainly be prepared to entertain. But I also wanted to ask Dr. Birdsong, in this discussion that we're having, did she have any comments on this right now, or does she have any recommendations with how she thinks the board should proceed, since she's kind of hearing the sentiment that we have based upon the questions asked?
So I would share that certainly we wish that we could give everyone a bonus. I mean, that's what we would like to be able to do, but certainly we wouldn't be in a financial position to do that. And so in having this discussion with the board, we thought that it was pertinent to certainly recognize those staff members who are committed to, not to say everyone's committed who is working with Norfolk Public Schools, but we didn't have an unlimited source of funding to bring those recommendations to you. I just want you to be careful as you're thinking about specific groups, because certainly you're going to leave another group out. Once you include bus drivers, which we would support, long-term substitutes, which we would support any group that you would want to have a bonus, but just be careful about those who have been left out. And I can say we have, and it's probably a guesstimate, probably over 2,000 part-time employees, Miss, would you say? 2,000 to 3,000. I was thinking 3, but probably this year a little bit less than we would have during a normal year if we weren't going through this pandemic. So I'm just going to caution you about that. So as you're thinking through who you would like to include to receive the additional bonuses, just know other groups will come forward for recognition. And again, I would just state that certainly we are very blessed and fortunate to have every employee that we have in Norfolk Public Schools. They all play a part in what we do for children every day.
Thank you, Dr. Birdsong. Any other questions or comments?
Just one other. I appreciate Dr. Birdsong's comments. I would, at least for me, I think right now in terms of the long-term substitute, I don't know how long long-term means, but I know our data shows us in many cases that for the lack of not having a full-time teacher in a position, we have long-term subs who have worked an entire year. And so to me, that is a category that definitely should be considered. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jordan. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. You didn't realize how popular you were going to be tonight, I bet. Okay, next on our agenda, we have 5.02 title grant applications.
Well, Dr. Martin, I have a motion to.
I'm sorry, jumping ahead. All right, I do this, I know. You guys all keep me in line. Okay, can I get a motion to accept the monthly financial report?
Motion to accept the monthly financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Who is that? Ms. Smith, seconded.
Okay. Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Martin.
Aye. Okay, next up we have, again, let's rewind, the title grant applications. Mr. Pohl, will you be presenting? Or, I'm sorry, not so much presenting, but taking questions.
Good evening. I have Ms. Malinak and Mr. Brady here as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Pohl? Ms. Smith, Ms. Basine, go ahead.
Dr. Pohl, I noticed the Title I application especially have been updated, I think, since the last work session. Would you mind kind of reviewing what the updates were and just, telling us a little more about it before we take action on it?
Sure. The updates were in the presentations last week that we changed the positions from content specialists to family engagement specialists for our English language learners. So those two positions added are going to be family engagement specialists. So that was the only change in the grant.
Okay. All right.
Is that your only question?
Well, it was, and I don't want to reiterate, but I did express questions and some concerns not concerns, but, areas that I wanted to see in the application that was going to impact my vote. And so your explanation tonight of what was updated helped, and I did review it again, but I don't have any further questions.
I'd like
Mr. Jordan. Mr.
Oh,
Jordan,
sure.
go ahead.
On the Title I grant application, I raised at the last meeting with the measurable objectives that are using the combined rate. Is there any reason why we cannot also add measurable objectives using the ESSA rate?
So I think we could always alter the goals. However, please know that whatever the school board goals are is really going to usurp the Title I goals. They're going to be really what's driving the division as well. So we consider where we end up with the goals and guardrails are going to drive a lot of our work as well. This is just a measurement on the Title I grant.
Yes, no, I understand that. And I guess my question is, what would be the objection to adding the ESSA rates as part of the measurable objectives for the Title I grant itself?
The only thing is we would have to make the alteration and vote on it tonight.
Yes.
If it's the will of the board.
I don't know. I'm at first I was just trying to get an understanding from you.
So are you requesting to make an amendment to include the ESSA rates on the Title I grant application?
Well, it's something that I'd raised before, and obviously it wasn't something that was recommended. I just wanted to get an understanding if it could occur and if it would make sense. If it hinders the work of the administration, then I'm more than comfortable with you saying that. It just seems to me, as I said at the work session, that having the combined rate and the ESSA rate would be a good way of measuring our progress for the Title I grant and would align with the accountability plan and everything else that we're working on. So I just thought that the measure objectives for this Title I grant, that would be helpful. If not, then that's fine. But
And I understand, Mr. Jordan. I think one of my concerns about doing it last minute is I don't have the ESSA rate data right in front of me to make those new goals. However, in the future, as we build the grants, we will make that consideration of the ESSA rate or the proficient rate as we move forward.
Satisfy you?
no, but I'm just one. That's okay.
Do you want to make a motion to amend it?
No, because I don't think that's
Okay.
necessarily appropriate. So
Okay. Any other questions or
That's your
comments?
request, Madam Chair. If you're not going to listen on this, at least
I'm sorry.
hold the mic up.
I can hear.
No, just
better
hold the
here.
mic up to you.
Okay.
Don't. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Can you hear me now? So was that your comment? Okay. All right. Then can I get a motion to accept the title grants?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we accept the title grant applications 1, 2, 3, and 4 as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Clanton. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Campson. Ms. Tanner, please call the roll.
Basine,
Nay.
Campson,
Aye.
Clanton,
Aye.
Gabriel,
Aye.
Jordan,
Nay.
Smith, Martin.
Aye. Okay, thank you, everyone. Up next, we have the revised academic calendars for 21-22. I'm voting on the Juneteenth holiday. Who will be presenting on that?
Madam Chair, we can present.
I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. Is there any discussion?
No, Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Clanton, go ahead.
No discussion.
Okay.
I'd like to move for the adoption of the Juneteenth holiday.
I thought the next item was
Can you change it?
You want to revise your browser?
is not employee leave anymore.
I have academic.
I have employee leave, gifted education plan, then Juneteenth.
So do I.
Is that correct?
He's been changing the agenda around as we've just been talking here, so I've been having
Have
to
those been
adjust.
removed?
Oh, I put where you requested those things to be, but tonight, just a few minutes ago, you've changed some things around
Okay,
during
is
this
my browser?
conversation. Yeah, so therefore,
So I have as 5.03 revised academic calendars.
because at first.
Am I the only one?
At first, we had GCBDZ employee leave was supposed to be 5.03.
That's what I
So now
had,
you-
5.03.
Okay,
And then now you
I'll
just
refresh
mentioned
again.
that, so I just moved it up to benefit what you were saying. I'm trying to flow with you.
Okay, I'm revising my browser.
Mom looks so tired.
Comes up now.
Let me see your pictures.
I was just reading my agenda.
For Gabriel and Helen. No.
Oh, okay. So based on the agenda here, Mr. Jordan would be correct that the item.
Okay, I
is
see employee leave is 5.03.
Yes, that would have been next.
Yeah,
I moved that
technology.
resolution too.
I'm sorry.
I said I moved that one too.
Okay, so in that case, let's just go ahead with 5.03 GCBDZ employee leave. Ms. Campson, go ahead.
All right, I have for clarification, some clarification questions for this one. Maybe HR could answer. I'm looking at the first page of the clean sheet. First page, Mr. Phillips, first page of the clean sheet. And it has, and I have three things I'd like to have clarified. Principals will attempt to take their annual leave when pupils are not in school. If a principal finds it necessary to take annual leave when students are in school, and suitable arrangements have been made for the proper supervision of the school. All right, all of our schools have at least one full-time assistant principal, up to 5 assistants, I think, at Granby High School. Those assistants are trained to run schools. They run schools when the principal's sick. They run schools when the principal's at training or meetings. So I'm not quite sure. Does it mean something beyond the fact that they have an assistant principal to guide the school if a principal's out?
I'm happy to address that
Okay.
piece of it. This isn't new. This is not a new part of the policy. In fact, please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Phillips. This has been in the regulations since 2004. I think the intent behind combining all of these G policies is what we call them, personnel policies, is such that to make it more employee friendly, so they can go to one place and read about everything there is to know about employee leave. So that's not a new piece of the policy. It's been in place since I was a building principal back in the day in 2004. So it's not a new piece of the policy. At the end of the day, yes, building principals, every school, well, most schools have an assistant principal. I think we're there now with the exception of a few centers. But yes, if building principals need to take leave, certainly they are allowed to do so. This does not now prohibit building principals from taking leave during the school year. Certainly things come up, things need to be done that they can't do during the summer or during the holidays and things of that nature. This is not intended to not be an employee-friendly policy. This is not a change. So we need to make that piece of it very clear. Unless I have misunderstood you, Mr. Billups, and what the policy committee talked about.
Can I respond to that, please?
Sure.
Yes, it has been there. I got caught under when I was not allowed to go to a close friend's wedding of her daughter. So I am very familiar with this. However, at that time, we did not have assistant principals in all of our elementary schools. So that was why I was questioning, do we consider them now sufficient that we don't need to have that in there? Or is it something that we still consider that there needs to be more of, is my question.
Go ahead, Ms. Basine. Are you looking to respond to her, to Ms. Campson? Did you? I was thinking, as a member of the policy committee, did you have a comment about that?
Well, I was just thinking to myself that it doesn't preclude an AP from being the supervisory role while a principal is out. Am I correct, Dr. Pohl? I mean, so it's not saying that couldn't happen. It's just specifying that someone should be identified if a principal were to be out.
And I understand all of that. Yeah. I was just wanting clarification on, how could there be cars?
There's a drag race outside the building right now.
12th floor and there's cars outside that we're hearing. I was just trying to clarify if that was still needed now that we do have trained assistant principals in each building. That was all I was asking. I wasn't trying to blow the world up or anything here.
Ms. Campson, if I may, I believe the nature of this section says that as a principal, you have to make sure your assistant principal is not on leave when you're going to be taking leave then, so that someone
well, now that would be obvious. But see, what I'm saying is I was trying to get it clarified because it's not down here that way. But, you know, that was what I said. And that's not my biggest point. That was just something that caught my eye because it seemed like we're at the point now that we accept the fact that we have trained assistant principals in all of our schools. All right. Let me get to the big one. Well, this is the one that seems to be causing the most confusion. All I need is clarification. For all employees at the end of the fiscal year, all unused leave beyond the maximum allowed for carryover will be converted, blah, blah, blah. All right. There's no item there that says, what are you considering the maximum allowed for carryover? And this is just, once again, clarification, everyone. Are we still looking at 50 days?
The maximum is 2 years of your leave. So as an example, I get 18 days of leave a year. So my maximum carryover is 36 days. Okay. If you're at 25 days, then yes, it's 50 days for carryover.
That's why I had 50 days. Okay. So what that would mean is that you can have up to whatever that limit is, because there was a concern among some that it would be not there on July 1, and then that's the prime time, July, for principals to take their leave because of all the need to be in the school part. So this is what it's, and it would have been nice if that had been like the next column.
Yeah, Mr. Billups would like to address that further.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. The purpose of that change was not to change the messaging or to change the process. What we did was, when we looked at this policy, we realized that it hadn't been updated since 2004. And so even though the way that it read was the 2 years, we wanted to make it a way that it would be easier for our employees to understand. And so when it said the 2 years of accumulation, 2 years depends upon your contract's length with the school division, as well as how many years of service you had with the school division. So our intention was to make it easier to understand what each person's 2 years worth would be. So for example, we want to put in a chart that's easy to understand, that's easier to understand than the chart that was there. So for example, if a person has been here for 5 years, they accumulate as a 12-month person, 15 days per year. So the maximum that they can carry over in 2 years is 30 days. But if a person has been here for 15 years and they are a 12-month person, they earn 21 days per year and thusly can carry over 42 days up to the max of the 50 days. So a person can find themselves on the chart and then know where they are and how much they can carry over.
Right. And I understand what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense. And it's in line with what we had before. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, and your effort was to make it more easier for more people to understand, to make it clear. But sometimes it doesn't work out. And I got a lot of phone calls on this one. And so that's why I said I was simply asking questions, not to challenge what's here, but to make sure we have clarification. And that's why with this wonderful chart you have, it would be nice to have had another column that had that information, because it just says beyond the maximum allowed for carryover.
Right.
And this is what caused the misunderstanding.
Certainly.
And that's all that I'm speaking to.
Sure.
Is because once it's here written, then, maybe someone may not understand it who is in a position of supervision.
Right.
Because maybe they're new to the district or something. And so that's all I was trying to do. I wasn't challenging what you did. And I understand you're making it, but this is one little section that wasn't clear like you had hoped. And so and that's what I would have requested, is that you add that last column. So it then is very clear and no one is confused about what's happening.
And actually, that's what we're doing. We're actually adding 2 more columns.
Oh, okay.
11-month employees as well as 12-month employees.
So you were already ahead with me.
And
with
some
that.
verbiage, some explanation and verbiage after that as well.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed was
So
clarification. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Phillips. Are you saying that you presented an updated version to us today, but you plan to bring another update in the future?
Let me clarify that.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Internally, there are a couple of pieces of research we're doing on this policy as well. So our plan is, when we do those changes, to update it with the table. However, for Ms. Campson's clarification, there are no changes to the carryover of leave, but we will make it clearer in the next rendition. But we would ask to continue to vote for this policy, because all of these G policies are connected. So if we don't vote for one, we can't vote for any at this point.
Okay.
Because we've moved so many things around.
So are you saying that we need to vote on this as it is without the clarification part added?
Because virtually nothing changed in the policy. The policy is still the same as what it was with the carryover time. That hasn't changed. That's a procedure that we have in place. So we will add it to the policy though, and add the columns to make it very apparent in the policy though.
But you'll be doing that post-vote.
We would do that with the next rendition. However, is that going
to be another like 16 years like the last rendition?
No, this is it's going to be in our July.
Okay. I mean, that's a long time for us to wait.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
We're good.
But I think we're all clarified. I hope everyone that's listening is clarified on this. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Mr. Clanton and then Mr. Jordan.
Madam Chair, I'm ready to move, but Mr. Jordan
has his hand up. Go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
I appreciate that. I just want to make sure I'm following. So we pulled this one policy off and we voted on other G policies. And if I understand what you're saying, Dr. Pohl, is this leave policy, you need for us to vote on that tonight?
I do, simply because all the pieces that were read in here were in the old policies that are now new, that were voted on earlier tonight. So those are not in policy anymore if we don't vote on this leave policy.
Yeah. Unless we
go
back and undo what we did.
Correct.
So I know Ms. Campson I do have a content concern. Because I got calls like Ms. Campson got calls as well. And I couldn't really follow it. But what I was doing was, as I often do, I would go and look at other school division policies to see what was comparable. And it looks like our proposed policy that we're discussing now is very restrictive compared to, for example, what I saw Hampton's policy and Virginia Beach's policy. It just in terms of the process, ours seems much more like a nanny state than in comparison to some others. And so what I was going to ask is whether or not we can, if we're in a position to hold those and get a better understanding of what is it exactly we are trying to achieve with these G changes. Because I know we often talk about being competitive in the marketplace and making sure that we're serving our employees well. And I just could not glean from these G policies what it is that we think we are achieving as far as making life better for our employees who are affected by this, so that's what I was still trying to get a feel for, but I didn't know if there was something that had to be addressed tonight because we're ending the fiscal year and you got contracts out, or if this is something that can be pulled and brought back for our July meeting, because our practice has typically been, if we are making changes like this, and at least in terms of feedback, I also receive something that might be deemed controversial or needing additional consideration, that we might do 2 readings of it to allow for public and employee input. And I don't know enough about these policies to say whether or not that's something we could do. But if it's not urgent for us to do it tonight, then that's what I would recommend that we do. So we have a clear understanding of what is it from a content perspective we feel we are doing in these policies that makes what Norfolk Public Schools offers to its employees as competitive or more competitive with surrounding divisions.
So on the policy side, I can speak to, we were trying to streamline our policies. Previously for leave, employees had to go to, I believe, 4 different policies to see what the policy was on leave. So we tried to put that all under one specific policy, and the legalities of the VSBA model policies are where we were going with the other policies. And when I had done some research and looked at other divisions, a lot of what we have in our leave policy is in procedure in other divisions.
Yep.
We just have it in policy.
Right. So again, if the intent of the policy is to be policy and the intent of the regulations are to be regulations, then if the recommendation from the administration is that we update and modernize our G-related policies, then let's do that and just do it in a way that allows the board to understand on the policy side what things we need to do, and on the regulation side, allow the administration to at least be able to communicate to the board how these things we're doing is going to make things better for our employees and more competitive. I'm just saying, I can't figure that out. And so, and the questions that I got helped me to research it more. And so if there is no sense of urgency on having to do it tonight, what I would say is, can we then send this, I don't want to say send it back, but can we then at least have an opportunity to make sure that from a board perspective, we understand on the content side, what things we are modernizing from 2004 to 2021. And then from an employee side, to make sure that if there are other thoughts that those who are directly impacted by this may want to have input on, that we would provide the opportunity for that to occur.
Could I just say, as the person who brought this up and had it taken out of the consent agenda, that I am satisfied with the answer that I got. Okay, and it's fine. And Mr. Jordan can certainly go on with what he's doing, but I just want to know that the answer that I got was what I was looking for, was just clarification.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm understanding correctly, the urgency of passing this or voting on this policy is the possibility of disqualifying the previous vote that we took this evening. But also, we do have the red line in regards to the changes from 2004 to now. We do have the red line version here. Mm-hmm. So I'm not understanding why we wouldn't pass this, get the next revisions that Dr. Poole had spoken about, and then we can talk about all of it at that time.
It's asking me because right now, outside of what we did earlier, we have a set of policies that govern the division. Once we approve these policies, then those policies govern the division. And then if we come back and make additional changes a month later, what would be the point of doing that? So to me, if the intent is, and I'm just asking because I wasn't involved with what is driving this, but if the intent is for us to look at our employee leave and related policies towards the goal of trying to align with our board goals and objectives around having more competitive benefits for our employees, then let's look at it, and then let's do it. So that's the context in which I'm raising it. But board, we can do whatever we want to do. I just wanted to share what I heard and what I observed as I looked at some of the surrounding division policies versus ours, and it may be some opportunities to make some additional adjustments that support our goal of attracting and retaining highly effective and quality staff.
And I can
Go ahead.
assure you that Mr. Phillips and his team, they, when they redid the policies, they thoroughly looked at all the policies. And I believe it's their recommendation that we keep these in the policy at this point. Is that correct, Mr. Phillips?
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Clanton, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. This is a recommendation from the policy committee. We actually sat through and went through this. It was presented to us to make it easier to take things that were in several different places, as it had been stated, and placed in one. Having a unique perspective, having been a former employee of NPS, I understood a little bit more about the leave and the carryover. It did not raise a red flag. In most places in corporate America and so forth, you can't carry over so much. And the reason why you don't do that is so that you don't have an individual who has all these amount of hours and then they just take off. You've got to have coverage. And we're in a unique situation that we've got to have people in the buildings doing the job at a certain amount of time. I understand and I respect all the comments that my colleagues have made tonight, but it is a recommendation. We have voted on the other items in consent. It is not, in my opinion, going to change a whole lot of things. They didn't change anything. All they did was put it in a format that was supposed to be making it a little bit easier there. So with that, Madam Chair, because this is a business meeting, I'd like to move to adopt policy GCBDZ, employee leave, as presented. I think that as the policy committee we've heard tonight, and that if there's anything additional, we will bring those back for updates to make it better in explaining. So I move.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Second from Ms. Campson.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Nay.
Smith?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Poole. Okay. And now we are we are on 5.04 revised academic calendars for 21 school year 22 concerning the Juneteenth holiday.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We've had a presentation by the administration regarding this item. We also took action unanimously as a board last year. Also, in addition to that, the United States Senate unanimously approved last night to move forward. And as of tonight, the United States House of Representatives has approved to make Juneteenth the 12th federal holiday for the United States of America. It is now a holiday here in the city of Norfolk. And I believe that as we continue to outreach and we talk about diversity and equity and excellence, that this is a great way to demonstrate, to encourage our community and our employees to take advantage of this, to learn about the great struggles that many African Americans and Black individuals in the community have gone through. So with that, Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the recommendation, which would make the 18th in observance of Juneteenth this year, as well as the 18th of the 2020 calendar year, right? Isn't it 18th? Or did we make it the 20th?
The 20th.
The 20th. So with that, I move for adoption.
Second.
And Ms. Campson seconded. Any discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
I do support the concept. I appreciate what Mr. Clanton has shared about the actions of the U.S. Senate and Congress, as well as the work that we've done. My only mixed emotion is I think that we have had a lot of conversation. In the last year, we passed a resolution in support of basically Black Lives Matters. I know that there's going to be legislation, well, actually bill that's been passed dealing with cultural competency and so forth. I would just like to see us, in addition to celebrating the holiday, that we also look at a way that we drill down on giving focused attention to our curriculum and trying to make sure that we not only have substance that's happening as people have time off, but that we also have substance that's happening inside of the building. You know, even as we discussed recently our educational planning and so forth. Yes, it's good to celebrate Juneteenth and an understanding that some African Americans in Texas didn't know that the Emancipation Proclamation had occurred. But we also have in our city with our school system some deep areas of segregation and some deep issues around institutional racism that we need to dismantle. And so as we consider the holiday and vote for the holiday, I also think that as a governance team and as a board, we need to come forward and also take some action to support equity and opportunity for all students of all backgrounds, especially African-American students as well. So I'm going to be supportive of the resolution, but I want us to do more than just take a day off and celebrate. I want us to take a day on and dismantle institutional racism in education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Any other comments?
Just, Madam Chair, that I agree with Mr. Jordan and his sentiments there. I do know that I think this year was the first year that the Virginia Department of Education had reauthorized African American studies to be instituted back in our schools. But many of the enjoyable conversations that I do have with Mr. Jordan is about history and some of the issues that we have here. And I do support those efforts. And I do believe as we go through the strategic planning process, this will be an opportunity for us as we identify those guardrails to make one of that item. So with that, I call the question, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Tanner, please call a question.
Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Smith? Martin?
Aye. Thank you all. All right, item 5.05, ODU student scholarship recipient. Can I get a motion to accept the recommendations?
Madam Chair, I move to accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Clanton. And a second?
I'll second. Second.
Do I need to call on someone to second?
No, Dr. Gabriel seconded.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can't hear 'cause
I see you. Okay, any discussion?
Yes, I know, just for the record, can we just get a brief presentation on this and why we're doing this so that we have an understanding of it, please?
It's my understanding that the background of this scholarship goes back quite a few years to an agreement between the Norfolk School Board and Old Dominion University. They offer 10 scholarships to Norfolk students. Each of those 10 scholarships is a 2-year scholarship. And so if students receive the scholarship and continue on to Old Dominion, and they remain in good standing, and they remain at Old Dominion for the 2 years, then the scholarship follows them for those 2 years. There's not 10 every year because it is based on students returning for a second year. And so the number that's available changes from year to year based on those recipients being at Old Dominion for 2 years and continuing with their studies. So this year there are 9 scholarships available. And so there's the application process. The applications are scored. It's based on grade point average, advanced placement classes, dual enrollment classes that are taken. And typically in all other years, it's also based on SAT scores. But since the SAT was not administered this year with any type of regularity, we used the PSAT scores that were in the student's record. So we did administer PSATs this year in January to juniors, had the opportunity to take it. So we had to go back to a previous year to get their PSAT scores for this year's seniors. That was because of the SATs, and COVID not being offered as frequently or as often as they had been in the past. We thought the most reliable replacement there for the application would be their PSAT scores.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just one follow-up question. So on the report cover, it indicates that these students are scholarship winners. And then in the description, it says that ODU will make the final determination. So can you just clarify whether or not these are actually winners or whether or not these are individuals that we are recommending and then ODU will make the final determination?
I think that is based on the fact that these students do continue to pursue their entry into Old Dominion. We haven't reached the point in the summer where the down payment has to be made for the coming school year. And so there is a chance that some of these students may change their mind and possibly attend different school. And so if that's the case, then that individual would
So for clarification, though, the role of the school board today is to vote on their nomination to be considered by ODU potentially to be recipients of this grant or of this scholarship, right? We are not naming them as awardees of the scholarship.
Correct. Once the board votes, we send the confidential list to Old Dominion University, and they're the ones who award and reach out to the students. So they do it based off our list. However, they're the ones who actually award them, and they're the ones who declare them the winners. These are our recommendations to Old Dominion University.
Thank you very much. Okay, any other questions or comments? I'm looking at you, Dr. Gabriel. Okay. All right. Please call the question, Ms. Tanner.
Basine?
Oh, she just
had to leave. Or just a
Can
second.
you call her last?
Yeah. Campson?
Yes, aye.
Planton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Yes, aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye. We have a quorum, so.
Okay.
Thank you. And next on our list, we have the resolution for the rollover of annual leave. Can I,
Madam Chair.
yes.
If I may, I believe at the beginning of the meeting, we moved the gifted plan to 5.04, and we do have to vote on that.
I didn't.
That's true.
Did I miss it? To 5.04. Oh, I don't have that on here. Why does mine? I revised it.
Yeah, I did.
It was, yes.
I didn't refresh mine,
Okay.
but it's there now. So you want to put it at 5.07 now? Or
Oh, well.
because
it
we've
was-
already done five, all the other
Yeah.
numbers, so we can put it as 5.07 behind ODU scholarship recipient.
Okay. Did you move it yet?
I mean, it's 5.06, excuse me. Yes. So it's 5.06
So we
gifted
have
education
not-
plan.
Okay, I'm seeing gifted education plan as 5.04 after I refresh. Are you saying it's at 5.06?
Mm-hmm. Because you've already done, no, you haven't done the rollover leave yet, so yeah. It's 5.06.
So we need to vote on the gifted education plan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the gifted education plan?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the gifted education plan as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Clanton. Any discussion or questions? Ms. Basine, go ahead.
That, so I just had a couple of clarifying questions.
Okay.
Given the recent information that was provided regarding young scholars. So if I understand, what was written in the local gifted plan correctly, so we are still going to be, so the identification for GIA will now go from 85% to 90%. Is that?
No, the GIA will be 85%.
85%. I'm sorry. And I meant because it was the cutoff, the cut score was lower before. It was
correct
70%. So that's what I meant. I know 90% kind of stuck out because I know there was some discussion between the 85 and 90%. And a few years ago, I know the GIAC had provided data that really showed the demographic differences when we move the cut score from 70 to 85 to 90, what that looks like. And I know in the local plan, one of the new strategies for ensuring that underrepresented populations are also receiving services is to look at local norms as well. So I'm trying to tie this together, that how we can effectively monitor these changes, because one concern is, so young scholars is GIA only, right? So if we are increasing the cut score, just an area of concern in the sense that I would like to see close monitoring of this, that we are not thereby, I guess, biasing our application process, selection process for that program, and that we're closely, monitoring that year after year. So, I'm sure that was part of discussion, and I know Ms. Stead, during her presentation had mentioned that there were, different levels of gifted identification that would then be looked at. But I want us to be very clear, because the data that was shared with us about, the non-SES, SES groups, the what appears to be the bias was pretty stark. So I want to be sure that we're providing that opportunity to kids, and that we're identifying them in a way that's equitable. So to that, so I don't know if you have.
So how I'd like to respond to that is, I believe, and I don't have the data in front of me, but I believe the students who are at Young Scholars are well above the current benchmark for GIA.
Mm-hmm.
So changing that benchmark is not going to change our attendance at Young Scholars. However, what's going to change our attendance at Young Scholars is our Emerging Scholars program. Because now at schools where we may have no students identified as gifted, we're going to have the top 15% scores as identified as emerging scholars, and we're going to work specifically with those students to grow their giftedness. and to work with them and to pull it out of them. We're going to do specific programs with those students that wouldn't have received any services previously. So after 2-3 years, we're going to start seeing those changes take effect. And that's what really excites me most about this plan, is the fact that we're really working with all schools and students across the division.
Okay, well, that leads me to my next point. So that was the point about the monitoring, that we're closely monitoring that and seeing what the impact of that Emerging Scholars Program is then having on, our middle school gifted program, Young Scholars, and other programs and gifted services in general. And I was happy to see that the Emerging Scholars Group will be clustered together with GIA and the specific aptitude students as well, right, during the elementary years. Okay. So I was glad to see that. Thank you for that response. I just wanted to put that out there, given the data that we received after the last work session. The other piece was, so we have also included visual and performing arts as, GIA, as we have the GIA, the specific aptitude, and the visual and performing arts is listed as a group. But then I noticed that in the service and delivery and the curriculum, I'm not looking directly at it right now, but that what services we would be providing in those areas weren't as elaborate, I guess, in the goals and objectives. And so just something to consider is that piece always seems to, kind of be minimized. I know not intentionally, but somehow in even previous revisions of the gifted plan, that piece has always been kind of, and I don't know if there's a reason for that or if there's anything that you can help me.
I know one of the discussion points that Ms. Stead made was increasing the budget to allow the after-school programs again for music and the arts. Because one of the long-term effects that we see is we also don't have the diversity in Governor School of the Arts.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't catch them when they're young in elementary school, how are we going to expect them to expand and be Governor School students in the future if that's what they desire to be? So that was definitely a part of the conversation, is bringing those back and also bringing back those after-school activities through funding so that we can gain the interest and then grow that giftedness.
Okay. So you think there will be, so that would be on us to kind of through our budget to provide the funding to support those activities. And so
I've asked Ms. Stead to already think about next budget year and what requests would be so that the board could see what those requests would be to grow that program.
Okay. All right, great. And I just wanted to highlight that. And then lastly is really more from a support, given the Gifted Education Advisory Committee is a committee of the school board, that we support their efforts to monitor this, because there is a great effort here to provide more equitable services and programs for our students, and that we as an administrative team, do all that we can to support the GIAC to monitor this local gifted plan. And so I just wanted to express, my support, and if for the administration team to support our GIAC to monitor the plan effectively. So,
thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Yes. Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye. All right. Thanks, everyone. Scholarship. Okay. I'm going to take a stab at it. The next agenda item is the resolution for the rollover of annual leave. Yay me. I'm catching on. Can I get a motion to adopt the resolution?
Madam Chair, I move for adoption.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Ms. Campson seconded. Go ahead, Ms. Tanner, call the question.
have a
Oh, I'm sorry.
question.
Sorry, discussion.
I guess we don't receive presentations anymore, but I'd appreciate it if someone would walk us through the
resolution.
The resolution. And in particular, one of the questions I have relates to in the resolution, it indicates that many employees aren't affected by this, but or multiple employees. So I'd like to know if we can quantify that some. And then I'd just like to also make sure that I'm understanding some pieces of it. So the policies, the G policies that we just passed, in this resolution, we are saying that a portion of that policy would be, and any amendments to it would be disregarded, that would impact this proposal for another year. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct.
So can you all just make sure I understand what I'm voting on? And,
Absolutely.
And if you can quantify the number of employees that this affects.
Sure,
And
Mr.
Dr.
Billups is
Birdsong,
prepared to.
Yeah. And the
share
point
some
also that this is the same resolution that we voted on last year.
I understand it's the same resolution.
Yeah.
And last year we voted on the resolution. There was, we went into a pandemic and it was 3 months in the year, 3 or 4 months. Now we are voting on a same resolution that impacts a full year. So I just appreciate an understanding of the difference between what we're doing for a full year this year, as opposed to what I think we rightfully did for a few months because of circumstances of a few months last year.
Go ahead, Mr. Billups.
Certainly. So with regard to this resolution, again, it's requesting an extension or another iteration of allowing employees to carry over their leave for another year. This year, it's based more so on the majority of the school year. We were in a remote telework status. So therefore, individuals did not use the vacation leave during the course of the 20 and 21 school year. So that's why it's being requested for carryover in this particular case for another year. It relates to the policy in that this is that part that we were talking about, in that an individual is only able to carry over 2 years worth of their leave, or else it would be converted to sick leave. So if we did not move forward with a resolution of this nature, then because individuals could not take much of their leave this year because we were in a telework status and our research shows that they did not take the leave, then more of their vacation days would be converted to sick days because they would be over their maximum 2-year limit that we've talked about based upon what their 2-year limit is based upon their years of service. Where we currently stand right now, based upon the information that we have, there are 304 employees that are currently over their limit out of a total of 720 vacation eligible employees.
Is there anything unique about the 304? Is it years of service? Does it just happen to be across a distribution? What is it that makes these 304? Is there anything that makes this 3 out of 4 out of 720 unique, other than the fact that we know that all of them didn't take the leave that they...
Right. No, not really. There is nothing unique in that each of these individuals are going to be over their limit based upon, again, their number of years of service and how many years they were able to carry over. So again, if a person has only been here, say 5 years, but they haven't been taking their vacation, their accumulation over, I think it was 30 days, anything over the 30, it would normally have to convert back to under the current policy to convert sick vacation days into sick days. Whereas someone who's been here, 25 years, who has a 50-year cap, then if they still haven't been taking their vacation, they're going to have many more days over that total accumulation. So each person is a little bit different, and we can work with payroll and have reports run, which I've viewed, that will show each person how many days they are actually over. So if anyone were to contact us, we're able to tell them this is the number that you're over based on your years of service with the organization. However, if the resolution passes, then none of that time will be converted for this year.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Is that all from you, Mr. Jordan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Following up, I just think generally speaking, when we have resolutions like this, especially since we didn't get a chance to talk about it at the work session, I think having that background information is important. At least it is for me. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, good. Any other comments or questions? All right, Ms. Tanner, please call the question.
Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye. Okay, I have on my agenda 5.08, renaming of schools process, timeline procedures for committee selection. Can I get a motion to adopt the recommendation? Okay, I was just going to see if I can get a motion first, but we'll have a presentation. Go ahead, Ms. Matthews.
Good evening, Chairwoman, Dr. Martin, Vice Chairman, Mr. Jordan, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Birdsong. I'm here tonight as a follow-up to our last discussion regarding the schools that are being considered for renaming and the process of selecting a renaming committee and the timeline for this work to be done. Much of the presentation is a bit of a recap from our previous discussion, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on that. Do you want to move forward with the next slide, Ms. Tanner? So again, as a recap, the three schools that are being considered at this time are W.H. Taylor Elementary School, Ruffner Middle School, and Maury High School due to the research that has been conducted to discover their ties to the Confederacy and slave ownership. Next slide. As we've discussed, our regulation FFA-R determines the process for renaming schools, and that the superintendent or her designee shall lead this process with the establishment of a committee, and recommendations will then be made and brought forward to the board. If those names do come forward, then they are selected and announced in a public manner. That's what's described here in FFA-R. Next slide. And at our last discussion, I presented two options for engaging the community in this process. Since we have three schools, we discussed the option for doing three separate engagement processes or doing one process with one at-large established committee of 15 members. And you all decided to select the at-large committee of 15 members. And so this is just a recap of that discussion. All schools would be renamed simultaneously if the committee should decide to move forward with doing so upon receiving recommendations. Next slide. So the recommendation for establishing this committee of 15 members, and as we discussed, to ensure that it is a diverse cross-section that is representative of our communities and these schools, is based on work with the school leadership team to identify the individuals that will be part of it. Obviously, it will be the three principals that serve over those three schools, three civic or community leaders, one from each of those school communities, three parents. It would be one actively engaged parent from each of those schools, three teachers or staff members, again, one actively engaged teacher or staff member that works at each of the schools that have been identified. And then the last option would be either three alumni from each school or three at-large members. That could be additional civic or community leaders, partners, NPS alumni at large. So there are some options and rooms there. And so in order to determine who would serve on this committee, they could be appointed through the school's leadership, or they could have an application process similar to what you all had for the school board advisory committee. Next slide. Additionally, there would be subcommittees that would help to guide and support the work of this 15-member committee.
Those subcommittees include something with the Chief Communications and Community Engagement Officer, which is myself, the newly selected Director of Communications and Community Engagement, the newly selected Community Engagement Coordinator, as well as the Chief of Schools and the Executive Directors of elementary and secondary schools. The next subcommittee would also assist with research and strategic engagement, and those would be members from the Assessment, Research, and Accountability staff, as well as the historian and Norfolk Historical Society. And then the last one, if the committee decides that they do want to move forward with renaming, then there would be a rebranding committee that works at each school to assist with those efforts of overhauling and changing over all of the materials and things at the schools and identifying those things that need to be switched over. And again, this is in alignment with what has been happening across the Commonwealth, and speaking with a number of my colleagues that are currently undergoing this process or have just completed this process of renaming schools. Next slide. And so the recommended renaming process, as we've previously discussed, is a 6-month timeline. I have since had a conversation with the consultant that we are working with for our strategic planning efforts, and we agreed with the recommendation that so as to not overburden the community. As I've mentioned, we do have a lot of efforts going on with our schools consolidation work with cooperative strategies, as well as strategic planning. We will be leaning and relying on the community quite a bit in the next several months. And so they agreed that we could certainly combine these efforts and still be effective. And so they are planning to begin strategic planning around the September timeframe after we have gotten over the hump of back to school. And so we would work together to partner to do those things at that time. And those targets would include establishing that committee, which should be done with 6 months prior to the actual school being renamed or starting that process. And then soliciting stakeholder input 2 weeks after that committee is established. Those were previously identified as well. Next slide. And that's pretty much it. And so the next steps would be for you all to vote on this selection process and vote on that timeline as described.
So based on the recommendation here, the let's see, on slide 5, the assembly of the renaming or the makeup of the renaming committee, I see blatantly we would need to decide if we want to have 3 alumni or 3 members at large.
That is correct.
Any comments on that, Ms. Basine?
Yes. So I too had some questions and comments related to that committee as well. You know, I personally like the at-large, but one of the things, I guess I'm going to try to kind of put my comments together. I would really like to see more parental involvement, current, stakeholders of the schools, or would be stakeholders of the school, not to say that, the whole community is not, but to put a little more weight. Right now it's kind of evenly split.
Mm-hmm.
I would also like to see, we kind of reaffirmed our commitment to involving, students, families, employees, in our decision-making process. And so I'd really like to see students as part of this. And I'd like to hear more if that's something other districts have done as well, right? They've had, kind of student input as well. And so I want to be sure that our students are participating in this process as well. And I don't know how that fits in. I don't know if we can enlarge it beyond 15 members, or, I don't know if you'd like to respond to that.
Sure, thank you. And I'm glad you brought that up because that isn't captured in the presentation, but it is something that I did research and talk with my colleagues about. And so the way this information is presented here, this committee would then work with the student groups at each school to engage them in different ways. One school division did decide to add students to their committee, but it was only at the high school level.
So not at the elementary level, but they did engage students that way. So again, there is a number of ways if you wanted to include the older students that could be really actively involved in being members of the committee, we could certainly look at that. Or there would be members of the committee that would then work at the schools level, whether it's a poll or it's a survey, or they go in and have focus groups with the students. There are ways that that would be incorporated into this overall process.
Okay, I just want to be sure that that student voice is captured
Absolutely.
in this. And I personally would be an advocate for having at the secondary, middle and high school level, having a student member of the committee. I don't know if my colleagues want to just make it high school, but I personally, think, middle and high school, we should have members of the committee, have them be members of the committee. But I'd like to hear from you all too about what you think about this.
Ms. Smith and then Mr. Clanton. Oh, wait, what's that? Oh, and Dr. Gabriel.
I think it's a good idea to have students on the committee, especially at the high school and middle level. Yeah, I support you on that, Mr. Singh.
Mr. Clanton.
I would ditto with agree with my colleagues. I think having student representation there, particularly middle and high school, we have some pretty inquisitive and outspoken middle school students. So I definitely believe middle and high school, because at the end of the day, it's this is why we're going to this committee structure and taking it back to the community to hear their voices through this process to make a recommendation. And so one of the things I talked about was diversity, and I believe that those students would bring that generational and age diversity as these individuals will walk in these hallways. So I would support adding students in that, which I almost see as a repeat when it says 3 alumni, because it says community leaders and then we have community leaders above on the other one. So I'd almost see if we can identify that on that line there.
Dr. Gabriel, go ahead.
So going back to the composure of the committee, we have, is it 11 or 15?
15.
15. And so we're saying that 3 members of that committee would be students.
No, we're talking about additional adding to the 15 with student representation.
Oh, adding to.
Oh, no, okay. I was talking about replacing that alumni group there with the students.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing it.
No, it's okay. I believe it's a repeat.
So replacing alumni.
I don't know.
We haven't even decided if we are going to use alumni or at large. So
I kind of personally liked having the alumni because they've been through the school, they've experienced what has gone on in the school, and then they have the perspective of the graduate. And so I just think that they actually have a more deeper sense of what that might mean. So I liked having the alumni, but I also like having the students. So students, their opinion is very important, but their opinion is at a different frame of mind and time set versus the alumni who has the benefit of maybe some wisdom, some different types of wisdom. So I would not say an either or. I would like to see both if possible.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. Mr. Jordan, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Yes, so I think I was just anticipating that we would get an update and that originally we were going to give the administration until later in July to flesh this out. I'm not quite sure, being in the position of trying to vote on a renaming committee tonight. I guess my other comment is that generally when we had the last presentation, we talked about having a committee of one. I guess I wasn't anticipating that it was going to be dominated by, I saw the all schools in Norfolk Public Schools belonging to the community as a whole. So that's what I was talking about, that community as a whole, not necessarily each individual school community. And so I appreciate whatever Ms. Matthews has to say, but to me, it seems a little awkward to put principals in the middle of it. It just seems to me if the Norfolk community wants to review this and make a recommendation, then Norfolk community and stakeholders can do that. If principals want to volunteer or fill out an application to participate, then I think they should have the right to do that. I'm not sure whether or not it puts a principal in an unfair position of being in the middle of this. So I don't know what the practices are around the state or the country as others are considering it. But my recommendation is that we, receive this as an update and come back later and flesh it out some more. That's just my feeling on it at this point.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Clanton, go ahead.
because the hour's getting late, I don't disagree with Mr. Jordan on that one. I think that we've got some ideas on it. So I like to move to postpone this to an update in July, where we might be able to take some additional action. I think that we've got some board members have added, and I think that Ms. Matthews can come back, and I think that we can take it up in July at our business meeting.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. I do. Okay, Ms. Campson, go ahead and you have a comment?
Yeah, just real quick, it seems to me that we are being too deep in setting up the committees and all. That's why we have a superintendent and someone that she's put in charge. So I'm not quite sure why we are talking about the composition of the committee and all of those in the weed details. We need to let the superintendent do the day-to-day operations.
We also, I think the reason that we're having this discussion is the importance of making sure that we are fully inclusive and representative and, are very intentional in the formation of this committee. And this is what we had asked Ms. Matthews to do. And so she's produced these recommendations. But I do have full confidence in the administration of carrying this out once decided. We are all new to this. We've not gone through this process. So I think we need to be informed on how this is going to be implemented. So there is a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, thank you. Ms. Tanner, please call the question.
Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye. Okay, so the renaming of schools process is postponed to our meeting in July. Thank you very much, Ms. Matthews.
Dr. Martin, really quickly, as a point of clarity and to also respond to Mr. Jordan's comment, most of the research showed that principals were part of the committees in the school divisions that I've spoken with, and also in a previous school division that I've worked in that I did a renaming of a school. So I just wanted to get a bit of clarity on guidance and direction as I rework this for the next presentation. Is it the board's desire then to remove the principals from the committee altogether? And is it the desire to expand beyond 15 members to include students? Or the last bullet gives a few different options. So I just want to make sure that I provide what you all are looking for the next time we come together.
Since we made no action, we're going to revisit this in July.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Up next, I have the school year 22 capital improvement plan. Mr. Jenkins.
Yes, good evening again, members of the board. You recall that in March, you had approved the capital improvement plan. It included $17 million of city source revenue or city supplied funds, and also requested flexibility with $17.7 million of reversion funds. Sorry, I can't. City Council in May, approved the 17.7 million in the capital budget for improvements or deferred maintenance on school facilities, and approved 10 million rather than your $17 million request for their seed capital from the annual allocation. So on the handout that you have at your desk, there's a table on the first page that summarizes the $17 million of city allocation that you had approved and that we asked council for. And then you also see the amounts that we are recommending of the $10 million. So we have 7 million less from the city in capital funds. And we also had some increases, especially in roofing costs that caused an imbalance that we need to address. So you can see that for the city annual capital allocation, several projects we are recommending that they either be transferred to the operating fund, which would be the case of Booker T. Washington feasibility study, along with the educational planning, or moved over to the reversion funds, as in the case of Booker T. Washington's roof and a couple of other projects. And then we've made adjustments in the estimates for roofing costs. So you have a list of projects that are recommended for the $10 million allocation from the city's annual allocation. That's on the first page. On the second page, there is another table that provides similar information for school reversion funds. This is a 17.7 million. Some projects we're recommending that they be delayed. Those with dashes in the recommended column, which says May 21. Those are recommended for delay. And when I say delay, we are planning to come to you next month with a capital improvement plan that covers 5 years. And I think you'll find many of these projects, in fact, I think all of these projects appear in the 5-year plan, simply not in the first year. And then again, there are several projects that were transferred from the annual allocation into the reversion because they were higher priorities. If there are specific questions, I'll be happy to address those.
Go ahead. Thank you. So next month, if we are going to be looking at the 5-year capital improvement plan, shouldn't this be kind of integrated with that discussion? Or does this have to be voted on tonight?
We were certainly asking for your vote tonight. And the reason is the year starts July 1st. So
right.
we're trying to avoid a further delay.
Okay.
We certainly have projects that we're working on that had funding in last year. We're trying to get them we're trying to get RFPs or IFBs out to get bids done so we can select contractors and get the work started. So we certainly would like for you to take action tonight, but we do understand that the 5-year plan is under consideration. I would say everything that we're recommending for the first year, it will be in the first year of the 5-year plan, and everything that's being delayed will be will fall between years 2 and 5 of the 5-year plan.
Okay. All right. And so another question. So for instance, not only am I asking the question about integration with the 5-year capital improvement plan, but also our educational planning efforts, which, I've expressed that concern previously, so I'm not going to get too much into it right now. But for instance, Jaycox Elementary, which is a possible school for a rebuild based on the presentation we received, and the cost of replacing a roof there is $3.4 million. So I have some concern about investing those dollars there when that could be a rebuild in the next 5 years, if I'm understanding correctly, right? Based on what was presented, well, at our work session.
That is one of 3 schools that is included in the educational plan of strategic cooperative strategies. That's certainly one of the schools that is recommended for replacement. Yes.
Okay. And this was a discussion that we had like 2 weeks ago.
I mean, one thing I would add, and the reason that is in here, there is no funding. We have identified no funding to actually replace these 3 schools. And if we're going to use them, we still need to maintain them.
Well, definitely.
Can I have Dr. Gabriel began to speak, so let's hear her comments, please.
Oh, no, I was just commenting on Ms. Bazine's comment because we had that conversation about Jaycox. They're slated for HVAC and roof. And we said that if we were to get ongoing discussions with the city with regards to what their identified commitment would be to rebuilding 3 of the schools, then obviously that would change the plans for some of the schools that had, been earmarked in some of these items for renovations. We don't want to spend money on a school that we know is going to be rebuilt.
Right, definitely. And my last question to this, and this is not a question that I asked previously, but so these roof replacements, are we considering the ability to put solar panels, for instance, on them? I mean, because I know there was some with our 5 new schools, I believe that they were for whatever reason not compatible, if I understood correctly, to have solar panels. So as we replace these roofs, are we going to ensure that they are compatible to have solar panels on them?
Can I answer that question? Sorry. Because I asked that same question in the facilities committee meeting that we had.
Okay.
And it was Mr. Fraley responded, Mr. Johnson responded, and I said, exactly what you said. As we're putting these roofs on, can we consider some renewable technologies? And they have had ongoing conversations with a couple of different entities.
Mr. Fraley's here. Are you listening? He can't hear. I'd like for him to come up and hear you.
Okay. And he can say if I'm saying anything incorrect, and Ms. Smith can as well. We were both in the meeting together.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
While they're always open to the consideration, at this point in time, they said that when we sit down and negotiate the quality of how these roofs are done with regards to a new building or with regards to what we can afford, sometimes the level of what we can put on a building may not necessarily be compatible with the infrastructure of solar panels. And there's a lot of maintenance that goes into the solar panels as well.
Mm-hmm.
For example, at Crossroads, the example that he provided was something hit one of the solar panels at Crossroads. It took forever to get a maintenance person in there to repair the solar panel. Luckily, that solar energy was not funneling energy to a critical source within the building. They had an alternative source. So it just provided a whole lot of nuances that the division had to work around. But I know that I have expressed to them, how if we can find a way to be green, let's work towards it. But if it's going to continue to compromise how we spend our dollars with regards to maintenance or other items, then it may not be what we get in immediately. And this might be where we sort of have some bargaining chips when we build our new schools. So that is my response to that.
Mr. Fraley, can you verify what Dr. Gabriel's comments are? Do you have anything else to say?
I heard the majority of them, but I didn't hear her initial comments. But I can say that, when you're talking about converting to solar energy, you have to figure out how to integrate that into your current electrical system. And that's quite complicated. They have to adapt it. And so when we're talking about our focus, it's the big four: roofs, HVAC, windows, and doors. So we're going to do the roofs first and button up the building so we improve the internal air quality. And then the next transition will be electrical upgrades and internal upgrades. And so that might be something we could transition to. But one of the issues with flat roofs, and the majority of our roofs are flat, is putting heavy objects on them that tend to pierce our roof systems. And so it would create we could certainly look to do that in the future as we start to transition into electrical upgrades. But for this point in time, we don't have it in the major CIP plan.
Okay, that's going back to Ms. Bassine's question is, are we replacing roofs in a way that gives the option of moving to using solar panels in the future? But what I'm hearing you say is that's not necessarily being considered at this time.
Well, our roofs are flat roofs and they're referred to as built-up roofs. And when we are flipping these roofs off, we're taking these roofs off and putting on new roofs, we have to use insulated roof panels. And the reason we do that is to bring the R factor up to R30, which benefits us for internal air quality and a whole lot of other cost savings with utilities. And what that does also is shed the water off the roof, because they actually, build it up in the middle and shed the water off, which helps prevent future leaks. So there would be some engineering if we were to move towards those. But I do believe our mechanical folks could figure that out. We have great mechanical contractors that work with us.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And just to follow up, I mean, there are plenty of, again, speaking to the partnerships, there are, sorry, I'm getting feedback in my ear. So it's distracting. There are grants out there. There's organizations that can help support our efforts around solar energy use and putting solar panels on that. I think it would be a shame with the number of roofs that we're replacing to not have that option to allow for solar panels, because I think the cost savings in the long run will be tremendous if we can do that. And so,
Right. Well, as you know,
yeah.
the average age of our buildings is approximately 55.5 years.
Right.
And so our electrical systems are of that age as well. And so when we would change our focus, we would have to have our mechanical contractors help us to understand how involved it would be to align the solar into our current electrical systems. And they're very competent people. I can probably have some responses for you folks when we come back for the July retreat. I can ask some of our contractors what they think.
Thank you. Did you have something, Mr. Jordan? Go ahead.
Yes. I still think somehow the process is a bit backwards, but I'll come back to that. First question, what funding source do we use to provide maintenance support for Maury High School?
We use the fund that is streamed to facilities through the general fund.
So how much would you say a year we are spending on maintenance issues at Maury High School?
I don't have that readily available, but I could certainly research that and get it to you.
Okay, so what we have here, so the money that goes into that maintenance category I was asking about earlier in the meeting supports Maury and other schools?
It supports the entire district. Any work order that is submitted comes out of that funding stream, and that is, dedicated for any maintenance issues we have.
And then based upon the recommendations that we have before us, so it would appear to me, and I'm asking this as a question, that it's been decided or being recommended that Booker T, Jay Cox, and PB Young not be considered for new construction or rebuild. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, I'll say this, we've asked for recommendations from our cooperative strategies folks, and they've recommended 4 rebuilds, as you're aware, and Jay Cox is one of them. But in any conversation we've had with the city of Norfolk, and we haven't had one in a while, and it was that they don't have any funding streams dedicated to new construction at this time. And so when we were creating the CIP plan, we didn't want to leave anybody out. And so we put every school in the plan that had a priority 1 job listed in the big 4: HVAC, roofs, ventilation, windows, doors. And so rather than not put them in, hoping the city would build the schools, we created a CIP that rectified all those concerns in case the city doesn't come through with the funding streams for the new builds. Because we didn't want to leave them out. And then if the city comes back and says, we're not going to rebuild these schools for you, then we're looking at a 5-year cycle before we come back to them after we lock in. So we just felt like we're going to put them in from the start of this plan. And then if the city does come through, then we'll divert those funds to other schools. And we'll do it quickly if we are in fact told that they can rebuild 4 schools. But the current estimates for a high school are 150 million. The current estimates for elementary schools are 30 to 35 million. So if you do the math, you're looking at, they would have to take on a debt load of more than $250 million. And I don't believe the city is in that position, not from the conversations we facilitated early in the year.
Yeah, I mean, you've had those conversations. I just think if you look at the previous 5-year plan, in that 5-year plan, the school board makes a recommendation to the city of our needs, whether it's new construction, maintenance. Matter of fact, I was looking at it during this meeting right now, and I even saw where issues around tracks and parking lots and all that was in a previous plan, which we talked about earlier in the meeting. To me, what this suggests is we are not going to consider a new Booker T or a substantial rebuild, a new PBO. And I know right now we're looking at the recommendation that's coming out of Jay Cox. And I'm just trying to figure out, I don't agree with that decision. I think at one point, part of the ed planning was dealing with Maury Booker T and Lake Taylor. And it just seems to me that some decision has been made that we will no longer consider a new building for Booker T. And that's what this recommendation says to me, which I think does not align with the St. Paul's area plan and all the things that we were talking about until recent. So I'm concerned about that very much so. Also likely with PBM. So I still think that as I look at this, it just seems like somebody's made a decision. We're not going to consider a new Booker T or rebuilt Booker T. And that's concerning to me.
Yeah,
I'd like to address that. So we hired these contractors to come in and support the work of the school division. And I know as a governance team, we've talked about the transition of educational planners, superintendents, administrators, all of that. Perhaps some of that may have been lost in transition, but the recommendations from cooperative strategies, that's exactly what they are, recommendations. And so if the board is inclined to move in another direction, and they have, of course, at the last meeting, the work session, they recommended the rebuilding of those 4 schools that Mr. Fraley referred to. So we have a lot of schools. We have, I believe it's 12 that they mentioned that they would recommend a rebuild. But the top 4, they provided those names to you. But certainly at the end of the day, this board has the authority to decide which schools get rebuilt. So we're just going on the recommendation of what the experts have recommended to us.
No, I appreciate that. And we talked about that some at the work session. What concerns me about the cooperative strategies recommendation, part of what we asked cooperative strategies and DeJean Richter prior to that was to give us recommendations that would include rebalancing our high schools, looking at consolidation, looking at closures. Somehow in the transition, the whole rebalance of the high schools got lost. That's what we were in 2018. So we just had graduations this week. It was clear that we can see that we have a issue when it comes to the enrollment balancing of our high schools. In absence from the most recent cooperative strategies recommendations, as I understand them, they said, don't worry about attendance zones, just fix the buildings. But I still think that is unwise and is not what we asked them to help us to address.
But Mr. Jordan, you do agree that our buildings, many of our buildings, they need to be rebuilt today.
I've agreed with that since I've been on the board. We did the ed planning to address it, but we said we were going to do it in a way that achieves certain outcomes. And I don't think it can just get lost. So we know we need to redistrict our high schools. And so I just think that's something we need to be considering as part of this effort. So,
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Well, and I know you haven't seen our 5-year plan, but I would just add that there are major projects scheduled for Booker T. They would get the big 4 and an electrical upgrade. A significant amount of funding has been dedicated towards that building in our 5-year plan, as well as PB Young and others. So when you get to see the 5-year plan that we have, the prospectus of us, what we're suggesting, I think you would understand that we've got everybody in our focus that has been forgotten for a long time. I mean, to give you some background, PB Young has its original roof on it, and that school is almost 70 years old. That's how long that building's been forgotten. And so we looked long and hard at that when we were creating the CIP plan. So I just want to make sure you know that.
Well, I don't question that. And that was why the goal was to have the 5-year plan together.
Yes,
and to have that now.
Understood.
What I want to make sure that you appreciate what I'm saying.
Yes, sir, I do.
Is that from the impact of the St. Paul's development, we have significantly impacted enrollment at PBM. I think the last report I saw was like down by 170, something like that. We have impacted Booker T. We've impacted Ruffner. We've impacted Tyler Park, as well as other schools that are in the receiving side, such as Chesterfield. If we don't have and then we put on the slide about some imaginary new Tidewater Park or some school that the city said it's going to fund, while at the same time, we're saying we haven't identified any funding to build it. So when we started this ed planning, we knew that something was going to happen with St. Paul's, and that was supposed to be a critical linchpin. And so we still need to have that as a critical linchpin and address the zoning and the rebalancing that we hired the educational planning firm to give us recommendations to support those efforts.
Thank you. Mr. Clanton, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Dr. Martin. I agree with some things and I disagree with some things that have been stated. I'm looking at the report that we received at the work session. And Booker T. Washington is 46 years old. Granby's 81. Lake Taylor is 53. Maury's 109. Norview High School 16 years. Norview's been redone. Granby's been redone. Maury was redone 89, 90. I benefited walking through that through the 90s. But we know that that was a pretty botched job because it did not replace the brick. And so it cut down on the longevity of that. Booker T. Washington High School isn't even 50 years old, but there are necessary upgrades. And I've made references in regards to the same time as Booker T was built. You could look at Indian River High School, many schools in Chesapeake, where they're able to refresh. This is why the educational feasibility studies in there to do that, to be intentional about the programming that's there. I do not disagree that I sat through the same graduation, but there is a visible difference into where our students are going. But we've got to look at it in the respect right now that we can't build two high schools at the same time. And Ms. Jordan, you and I have also had conversations even about the proposal that was talking about CTE. We really should be seeing that. But when we look at and we talk about we didn't vote on the St. Paul project. That is what the city has done. We are part of it, and we're sitting at the tables and so forth. But there's proposals that have been made to us in regards to Tidewater Park Elementary School and the proposal about moving those grade levels to Ruffin, where we have the capacity. I can't fathom or see us talking about moving students around to create equity when we have buildings and physical structures that do not meet the standards for which our kids should be learning it. I think that we're being presented a plan that we have to take action on that will allow us to bring our buildings up, to give us the necessary time to allow the funding to be put in place where we can actually move things around. We've got a 5-year plan that will be presented to us. However, when we look at JCOX and we're talking about HVAC and we're talking about the building, I appreciate the forethought and the pre-planning to say, hey, if we don't have the discussion or we don't get funded on this one, at least we put the plan in place so that we haven't forgotten about these schools, because we will be waiting another 5 years to do that. I think that we have the opportunity now to move forward with a year one. And if City Council, which is another item that I want to talk about at some point here tonight, says and in our discussions that this is what they're going to help us in funding, and we make that case and we become partners in that so that we can identify, because we are not the funding source. It is our responsibility to identify what buildings and identify the educational instructional facilities that we need to make sure that they understand we need you to take this debt on. This is the partnership that we have to do to tell our voters and tell who are the taxpayers who have to pay for this, that this is what we need. So I don't disagree in the concept, but I think the timing and what we have here, we have to acknowledge that we do have a plan, and that I'll give credit to the administration for at least putting forth a plan. We're going to talk about the 5-year down there, and there may be some things we move around, but we've got to take some action to move forward. We've already identified that there are a lot of things in regards to the ARP funding and the things that the federal government, the additional reversion funds that we've got to do things for our schools. That is one of the #1 things that come out of a lot of the individuals in our communities. When we talk about recruiting the best teachers, well, they want to work in an environment that looks safe. Our parents want to make sure they send kids where their learning environment, they're not worrying about dripping water from the ceiling and so forth. So I appreciate that, but I just want to say that we have a plan. I would encourage my colleagues to look at that this is just 1 year of a 4-year plan, and that we'll spend much more time about that during our retreat to really kind of flesh out other things. And if we decide to move some things around, but like I said at our work session, the time is now for us to take some action. It's enough time to keep talking about philosophical things. I do not say that they're not important, but this is an opportunity to seize the moment and to ensure that we're prepared for the opportunity, where the opportunity is here right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clanton. Go ahead, Ms. Basine.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments that have just been made. And like I said earlier, I don't want to rehash everything that I said at the work session as well. I support, the things that Mr. Jordan has stated as well. Coming back to a follow-up that was requested at the last work session that I think is also pertinent to this discussion is the FCI projections should these projects be done. And
we're working on that, ma'am. We've done the math. Mr. Fuddy and I have been working on it actually today. We forward the mathematic computations to our cooperative strategies consultants, and they are going to begin those conversions so that they could show you how that would look.
Right.
But just so you know, in this 5-year plan, every school, 34 that had a priority 1 job for the big 4 is in the plan, except the schools that are set up for the possibility for consolidation or that are on watch, because we don't want to invest in a building that we could be taking offline. So we have all that money, almost $170 million focused on 34 schools, 15 roofs, 30 HVACs, 24 windows, 19 window jobs and 24 door jobs. And then we've actually started in on the electrical upgrades in this 5-year plan because we had some money left over. And I believe, I know Booker T's in there for an electrical upgrade and a few other schools. I don't have the document in my hand, but we're already progressing past the big 4 because of this unique funding stream that's available to us right now. With the CARES Act money, with the reversion money.
Okay. Well, it sounds to me, going back to my original comment when we began this discussion, that these pieces of information are significant to this decision-making process.
Understood.
So
Yes, ma'am.
I stand firm, in the concerns that I have around supporting it, even though I absolutely agree that our facilities are in need of dire attention.
Yes,
but there are other areas, as Mr. Jordan so eloquently put, that also are in need of dire attention. They are not ills of the past, they are ills of the present. And we right now have a role to play in that. And so I firmly stand with addressing that and integrating all of those pieces together as we continue this work. So, and and then tying into the renewable energy, the solar energy, 15 roofs. I mean, that is 15 buildings that we have the potential to really do something that would be beneficial to our environment and would provide cost savings in the long run. 15. And to me, for us to not address that piece also is, I think would be a shame. So I think that's another area of concern.
Thank you, Ms. Basine. Dr. Gabriel?
Thank you, Dr. Martin. I'm using this as our discussion leading up to the motion for approval of the CIP. So I'm going to vote to approve the CIP. We had a recommendation presented to us from Cooperative Strategies, a group that the superintendent has worked with, she and her staff. They provided several reasons. They looked at building capacity. They looked at the area around there where they thought the viability of the school would look at. They looked at several different criteria and they explained that to us. And while I know the picture is not perfect with regards to all of the bigger ideas that we have for our school division, we have to start somewhere. And going back exactly to what Mr. Clanton said, now is the time for us to act. As a board, we have to take action. We cannot hold the superintendent and the administration at bay any longer. They have to move on these projects. And the community is looking to us to make sure that these things happen. And the more that we delay and try to put in all of these other items, it's just going to, it's going to send signals that we can't take action, and we absolutely must. And I think that we can demonstrate that in July when we come back together and really talk comprehensively about what the long-term vision is as we work and feed in our strategic plan. But right now, I would just encourage us to take action on these plans that have been very thoughtfully presented to the board through the experts. Yeah. So I'll be voting in support of the CIP.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I agree with taking action. I think that there are two high schools that bear the brunt of redevelopment in the city. Most recent redevelopment and current redevelopment is Booker T and Lake Taylor. There are two high schools that our review of our specialty programs indicated that they are less supported than the other three. They are Booker T and they are Lake Taylor. And outside of whatever may happen in the military circle area, there's one high school, really one whole feeder pattern that is being significantly impacted right now in this city. And that's the PB Young, Tidewater, Ruffner, Booker T feeder pattern, which also includes Jaycox. And so, as I said earlier in the meeting, when we were talking about Juneteenth, we have known about the opportunity to positively impact that entire feeder pattern. We talked about Marty 2014, and everybody told us, don't touch it. So we just let it sit for 7 years and spent money and spent money and spent money. The opportunity we have to impact the entire feeder pattern on the east side of the city in Ward 7 right now, from an equity perspective, is that pathway to Booker T, and similarly that pathway to Lake Taylor. Norfolk Public Schools is the educational lead for the Choice Neighborhood Grant that talks about Booker T and Ruffner and these other schools. And so to me, we are perfectly within our purview, responsibility, and the only thing that we have not taken action on is advancing, in my opinion, is advancing that feeder pattern with a defined and cleared way, even with the SWIFT funds, that now we're talking about another allocation is being provided to us. That money could also be supporting some of this new construction. So I personally think we should not have Booker T in this plan as is identified. I'm not saying it shouldn't be supported, but I don't want it to be the case that because we take this action tonight, then we're saying we no longer going to consider a new Booker T that aligns with the plans that have been approved and endorsed by multiple governing bodies in this city, because we put in a roof. So those are my thoughts. And whenever we vote, we'll vote.
I have a follow-up.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Dr.
Jordan,
Birdsong.
I'd like clarification when you made a comment about Booker T. Washington and Lake Taylor High School not being supported. Do you mean by the administration?
I mean by Norfolk Public Schools. We looked at our specialty programs. And one of the things that we had asked to get a new update on the specialty programs. When you look at the specialty programs at Booker T and at Lake Taylor High School, in comparison to the other three, they are not as fully developed and supported as the other three. And part of the ed planning, part of the feasibility study, all of that, it was driven by that data and that research. So yes, I am saying that Norfolk Public Schools has failed to support all of our schools in an equitable fashion, and our data and research shows us that.
Okay. I just want to be clear, because since I've been acting principal or superintendent and superintendent, any and every request that has come out of the school to support those specialty programs, this administration has supported them. And I don't want that to be the message, that we have not supported those specialty programs in a manner that the building leaders have requested.
All I'm saying to you, and I wasn't directing it to you, I was just directing
That's why I asked for
to us as a whole,
clarification, and I appreciate that.
that as a board, we asked for an assessment evaluation of our specialty programs. that work got delayed. I'm not saying it was your decision. For whatever reason, the board allowed it to get delayed. I'm just simply, for me, I'm always going to tie the academic outcomes and the school facilities together. And so if people were not aware that we have this disparity in our specialty programs, then this board knows it now.
Ms. Campson, go ahead.
I was trying to not get involved in the conversation, but I'm just going to take a minute to say we have children in schools that are falling apart. We have children in schools that are full of bugs and rats. We have children. Well, just speaking on my own personal experience, we have schools that are old.
I'm not aware of rats.
And here we are arguing about all these different things. Let's start building some schools. Let's take our children out of these old rickety buildings and put them into modern 21st century schools. Shame on us. Shame on us for letting our schools get into the condition that they're in and not focusing now on doing everything we can do so that we can take our children and put them in schools that are safe and cleaned and modern and ready for the 21st century. Let's do what
22nd.
Well, whatever century it is. 21st century? It's the 21st century. We got 80 more years of it. But let's focus on making the main thing, which means that we are replacing these schools. Let's partnership with the city council. Let's make last decade, they gave us 5 new schools, and those schools needed to be replaced. And those children now are in 21st century schools, and they're all spread around the city. They're not focusing or playing favorites to anyone. They're new, and now we're in a new decade. Let's talk with the city council. Let's partnership with them. They'll build us more schools. Let's and I'm not going to keep talking, but I'm just saying that we're not making the main thing the main thing. Get rid of these old schools and give our children new schools. That's the main thing, not all these details.
Thank you, Ms. Campson. Can I get a motion to accept the capital improvement plan?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the capital improvement plan as presented.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Tanner, please call a question.
Basine?
Nay.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Nay.
Smith?
Aye.
Martin?
Aye. Okay, thank you, everyone. And we will continue this conversation at our retreat in July. Next on the item, I have the Virginia Department of Education authorization of signature and absence of division superintendent.
Madam Chair Martin, Mr. Jordan, members of the school board, as you know, the Virginia Department of Education requires that I, as the superintendent of school, designate individuals to be able to sign off on official documents, VDOE documents in my absence. And so at this time, I would like to recommend that Dr. James Pohl, Chief Academic Officer, and Dr. Linnell Gibson, Chief Schools Officer, be authorized to serve as my designee in that regard in my absence.
Okay. In that order, Dr. Pohl, then Dr. Gibson?
No specific order, but
okay.
Yeah, depending upon what documentation is needed, because they both govern 2 different divisions.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the recommendation by Dr. Birdsong on her designees?
Madam Chair, I move to accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Clinton, and Ms. Campson seconded.
Okay. Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Smith? Aye. And Martin?
Aye. All right, thank you. Up next, we have the superintendent's recommendation of the student school board representative for school year 2021-22. Dr. Birdsong.
Thank you, Madam Chair Martin, Mr. Jordan, members of the board. Let me tell you a little bit about the process that was utilized. Each high school building principal was charged with selecting two student semifinalists from a pool of student applicants to serve as the student school board representative. Then the semifinalist applications were then sent to an ad hoc committee. Committee members then reviewed the applications of the students, and they also interviewed each individual student. That committee then forwarded to me the applications of the three finalists for my review. I reviewed the applications. I set up interviews with the three students. I interviewed the three students, and they all are just wonderful examples of our children in Norfolk Public Schools. So at this time, I would like to recommend to the board that rising senior Karma Johnson of Morey High School serve as the representative to the school board as a student rep. Karma has been enrolled with Norfolk Public Schools since she was a kindergarten student. She's also enrolled in the Governor's School for the Arts and is passionate about art, writing poetry, and taking photographs. Karma expressed to me that she would like to serve as the student representative to the school board because she wants to be the voice for those students who do not have one. And according to Karma, she was created to challenge the normal, to go against the grain, and to stand out. Additionally, I would like to recommend to your attention rising senior Shivani Rastagi of Granby High School to serve as the alternate student representative of the board. Shivani has been enrolled with Norfolk Public Schools since she was a kindergarten student. She's currently enrolled in Granby's International Baccalaureate program. She enjoys serving as a coach for Girls on the Run, volunteering at the Norfolk Public Library, and volunteering at the Hindu Temple. Shivani expressed to me that she would like to serve as the student representative to the school board because, as a longstanding student of this school division who has a strong passion for learning and education, she feels that it would be a great privilege to take on this position and become a change agent for Norfolk Public Schools. So I would like to bring those two students to your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Birdsong. Sounds like we're going to have our hands full next year.
Yes, believe that. All of the students were exceptional, and it was certainly a very, very difficult decision.
Yes, yes, I imagine. Well, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Birdsong? Okay, can I get a motion to accept her recommendations for the school board representatives for school year 22, both the school board representative and the alternate?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the outstanding recommendations provided to the board by Dr. Birdsong for the student school board representative and alternate.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Clanton. Ms. Tanner, please call the question.
Basine?
Aye.
Campson?
Aye.
Clanton?
Aye.
Gabriel?
Aye.
Jordan?
Aye.
Smith? And Martin.
Aye. Exciting. Okay. All right. Next, we have matters of the board, and Ms. Simpson, do you have a student representative report, your final report of the year?
I don't have much to say, but I just wanted to say congratulations to everyone who just finished out the school year, students, teachers, administrators, everyone. I just think this entire district has demonstrated so much resiliency this year, and that's going to be so beneficial in years to come when we don't have so many setbacks, but we can use that resiliency to keep pushing forward and being a great school district. And thank you again for having me this year. I've really enjoyed it. So thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Simpson. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. So reflecting on your graduation ceremony, what memory stands out to you?
So I wasn't expecting to get emotional at graduation, but I walked in and I wanted to cry immediately because I got to graduate with people that I've been going to school with for 10 years. And I got to sit next to someone who like I'm not close with, but I have been going to school with for that long. And just sitting around so many different types of people who come from different backgrounds, but we've all been like built up on this same foundation was so special. And even just being able to be a part of a school district where I get to share it with so many people and so many different kinds of people, like I said, was the most special thing. And I'm like eternally grateful for all the amazing educational and social opportunities that Norfolk Public Schools has given me. And I know my classmates are too. So it was a special day.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Aw, okay, well, good. Mr. Clanton?
Thank you, Dr. Martin. I know that we're probably in here and all of us just really want to thank our teachers and staff and everybody this year. Also, I don't want to forget our NPS retirees. Normally they get to have a nice boat ride and send off, but I just want to thank any of those who are retiring for us this year. Just thank you for your work there, and also to congratulate all of our teachers of the year. There's another item in the respect. I know individuals watch outside and they see what some may say is arguments, but really honestly, I see individuals who are on video and present here who are passionate about their stances and their views. And you've even heard me say from Mr. Jordan, I've known him for a long time, but I learned something from Mr. Jordan all the time. And we have back and forth. But I think at the end of the day, we all want what's best for our students and what's best for the school division, or we wouldn't be sitting here since 2 o'clock. It's almost going on 11 o'clock at night now because we're passionate. And I think the staff are hanging in there with us as well. But I heard in this last conversation talking about capital improvement program that we in the plan that we need to take some action and we need to begin to have those discussions. And I've shared and I've had some discussions there. Dr. Gabriel brought up at the last work session about a letter that we received from the mayor talking about 2 members from council to be appointed to begin to have those discussions about school construction. I believe that we are the educational leaders, and unlike the PPAE plan that happened a couple of years ago, we weren't really at the table to help with driving that. And I don't want to have that same mistake. I really want us to be partners in this next process. We have Craft Strategies who have given us a plan about new school construction. I don't disagree with Mr. Jordan in respect that we've got to do something in looking at school construction around here. So in that same spirit, I'd like to put forth to my colleagues here that we begin to have those conversations, that it doesn't take anything away from what we need to do. And I'd like to make the recommendation that those conversations happen with the 2 individuals who are sitting around the table representing us in the facilities, Ms. Christine Smith and Dr. Gabriel, to begin to have those discussions about sharing about the plan from board to board, from governing body to governing body, and to bring them on board with that. And that we can continue to, when we come together for our retreat next month, that we can continue to talk about the larger 5-year plan. But I think that is a good gesture from both sides of the street here, that we begin to cooperatively work together so that we can be hand in hand and moving forward. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to recommend, I'd like to move that we appoint Ms. Christine Smith and Dr. Gabriel, who sit on our facilities committee, to begin to have that conversation and working with City Council.
Ms. Smith, go ahead.
It's 10:30 at night. And I think that this is something that should be given more consideration or discussion than right now. Just coming up. So let's put that as something for us to discuss, maybe at the retreat or at a later date, and come to a consensus.
I'll just say quite simply, I have responded to the request to have City Council members assist us with decision making, and we're working out dates. The request was for Dr. Birdsong and I to sit down with them And so we have, we asked them to wait until after graduation and also, it's a very, very busy week, obviously. And so we are working out that time frame. So we are already planning to meet.
All right.
And I agree, we definitely need to be at the table for the discussions. That's full-heartedly, and I said this in my response a couple of times, we need full-on collaboration between both governing bodies. Yep.
All right.
Go ahead.
Who do you want to speak next, Dr. Martin?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Bassina is speaking. I have Mr. Jordan. And do you have your hand up as well?
Yes, thank
you.
you.
We'll go in that order. You go last. Okay, so it'll be Ms. Bassine, Dr. Gabriel, and then Mr. Jordan. Go ahead. I can hear you. I can hear everyone better without these on.
Okay, is that better? Okay. So in your last response, at least I thought we were holding off on moving forward with that meeting until a later date. Is that?
I had requested that, but we don't have a date yet. So I really can't answer that. I mean, we're going to meet because they're anxious to share some information with us, and I'm really not clear on what that is just yet. But and we haven't set a date, but that's where we are. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to give you a lot of details because there really isn't much more than that.
Okay, so there has been further communication about at least that part, that there's more information that they would like to share.
Yes.
With you. Okay. All right. So how is this fitting into the conversation, the leadership of this governing body and the leadership of that governing body were supposed to be meeting regularly? How are those discussions taking place, and how are we? Because I mean, we're talking as if there hadn't been this partnership before. And I know our two entities have been trying to work together and had been working together, a few years ago. And I thought we were kind of re-engaging in that work or in that.
Well, that was my question, was please clarify what this is, what the expectations are here.
Yeah.
I have not gotten full clarification just yet.
Okay.
So that's what I'm hoping to work out.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Gabriel, go ahead.
Was Mr. Jordan next?
No, he yielded to you. Go ahead.
Okay. Facilities committee, since we're committee reports, I know that we need to work on making sure that the minutes are posted for our meetings. And so that is a point so that everybody can have the benefit of our really wonderful and informative facility meetings. There was some discussion, how we got a little preview of some of the things that are going to be coming up for the July retreat, which looks wonderful with regards to the planning and the thought process for the CIP and some other items. The other thing was, I thought that Ms. Smith brought up a really good question at our last discussion about, what would the cost savings be if we were to, turn over or consolidate certain schools. And they gave us, some information on that. And from that information, just by moving on some of those school consolidations, you could essentially, with the bond rates now, bond out, and I may not be using the correct terminology, an elementary school, for example, with the rates that they are now. So there are some good discussions had in the facility committee. And anything else, Ms. Smith, that I'm missing in that we talked about doing some non-negotiables if we do continue to engage, with the city with regards to new construction. We heard a lot about some of the things that they learned from with building the 5 recent schools.
Not that I'm aware of.
So I'm glad you brought that up about the minutes to meetings, because if you do see under matters of the board, this is where we would be giving our board committee reports. And I have noticed that we have not received regular reports from the facilities committee. And so I would appreciate, if we could continue to do that.
Right. So that can happen. So that was the facility report item. And then just, I guess you can call it a point of privilege. I'm really grateful for Miss Simpson and Miss Bears for their participation this school year as our board reps. I know it's been such an unconventional year for them to be a board rep, but I'm going to tell you, you are going to use this knowledge later in life. You're going to be in your job one day or in a committee meeting, and you're going to pull back to our board meetings. You're going to say, I remember how they debated, this, or they voted on this. And it's going to be knowledge that's not necessarily tangible at this moment, but it is so invaluable. And I'm excited for what your future holds. Please do not be a stranger to NPS when you graduate. We want to have you back and provide all of the good things that you're doing in the outside world and bring it back to us so that you can continue to mentor, our students that we have. And the same thing that for Miss Amelia. And finally, this year, we're closing it, and we've done a wonderful job with recognizing all of the monumental achievements of our staff members. I know Mr. Clanton said, we want to thank our teachers and our retirees. I'm just grateful for all of us that we all made it through healthy. We're here. Some family members lost loved ones, and that was very, very sad. And we received lots of updates as a board on those who may have, passed on or lost a family member. And we've always had the sentiment to keep them in our thoughts and prayers, and we truly do. So I'm ready to move on from this year to July and look forward to wonderful things that are going to be happening as we plan for what's to come in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. Okay, anything else? You're good? Okay. All right. It's been a long meeting. We've accomplished quite a bit today. Really good discussion. And I'll continue to update you all on the progress with our retreat scheduling via email and phone conversations. I know I texted you all today, the update. So please be safe going home. Ms. Smith, do you have something?
Yeah, especially the time. We need to know the time.
Yes. That's what we're working on right now.
As soon as possible.
Yes, absolutely. Loud and clear. All right. Thank you all. Have a great evening. And I appreciate all of the work of our administration, and congratulations again to all of our 2021 graduates.
And tomorrow's the last day of school.